Hello everyone, Fights with Friends here, Fights with Collins, for once, as I will get that up there. What's up, Graveyard Smith Chats? Yeah, anyone agree? Conor McGregor ruined MMA. Hope Mike has a conspiracy on this one like GSP. Well, I think the fight may be GSP. There's a lot of things running through my mind right now. So last time Conor McGregor announced his retirement in 2016, he put out a tweet. He said, "Thanks for the cheese." Kind of, had this cheaty tweet with him with a bunch of money. And he's like, I'm gone. Well, during that time, I don't know how many people remember, but Conor McGregor, one of the guys that he was training, that was fighting over in Ireland, a guy that he had fought had died during that time. And the UFC, 2 days later, 2 days after that, the UFC called him and said, "We want you to come do media." 2 days after he sees this death. And he was very shook up about it. No matter what you think about Conor McGregor, he was very shook up about this death. And he's like, you know what? I'm not ready to talk to people 2 days later. You expect me to go out there and do this thing 2 days after I witnessed the guy that I was coaching. I was in his corner. He literally killed the guy. I seen this guy die in front of me. And you want me to go out and do media 2 days later? He says no. He was very, very shook up by the death of this young gentleman in Ireland, as well he should have been. Since then, of course, we've seen Conor McGregor rise to heights that no matter what you think about him, we've seen him rise to heights that we've never seen any MMA star, and you could argue that he was in the very top of combat stars of all time. He gets the huge fight with Floyd Mayweather Jr. He gets the proper whiskey deal, which people have said he's killing the whiskey business, and that just makes people buy more whiskey. That's like the best line ever. He's killing the whiskey business. And if you're going to look and drink, I'm sorry, that's the kind of language you want to hear. If you're a fight fan, like me, you probably have a drink in your hand a lot of the day, if not something else. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm on vacation. Give me a break. But yeah, I got a beer in my hand. Why would you continue to get punched in the face when you have hundreds of millions of dollars? Now, is this a negotiating tactic? I will go to the chat right now, and I'm going to post first. I'm going to post the call-in number for you guys. It actually is on Skype, so let me know when you've sent it, because I don't want my Skype to get overran. There's not a lot of people in here right now, but I will have to accept you before you're able to send me a Skype. Billy's already got it. Billy's already got my Skype. A few people have my Skype, but not very many people have my Skype information. So let me get that up there to begin with. If this thing will let me know. What it is. Skype is such a piece of crap. Now that I tell you to call into Skype, I'm gonna thoroughly complain about it. But it's certainly not without its issues. So it's just live Fights with Friends. Live quotes, fights with friends. That's it. Billy, feel free to call in. Anybody else, send me an invite. Let me know if you've sent me the invite. That way I know who it is that I'm accepting the invite from, and I will buzz you in. Conor barely took any brain damage in his career. I think he took more damage from his drinking and the cocaine than he did from the punches in the cage. And I know Conor McGregor has had issues with cocaine in the past. This is not publicized. I don't want to go into it deep, but I'm going to say Conor McGregor has definitely done cocaine, because I know a source that was in a UFC room. I don't want to give too much out about it, but an anonymous source that I trust very, very much. I know Conor has done cocaine. I don't know if this was a drunk tweet in the middle of the night, because this was, he was negotiating for a fight in July. And of course he wanted a percentage of the business. And they just asked Mike Tyson about this today, actually, on TMZ. They said, remember guys, when you call in, mute your computer so it doesn't echo. Thank you, Bill Hughes. Fake retirement, says Rodney War Eagle. And I did not follow in the steps of Mystic Moss over there on MMA Holes. He put up a tweet today that said, basically the same thing as Conor McGregor, but instead says known as podcasting, that he's going to retire from it. I thought that, I just didn't want to go there. I'm not going to criticize him. It was, I know what he's doing there. He thought it was funny. But, whatever. If MMA Holes is canceled, come on over here and join the Fights of Friends family. Just behave yourself. Benny B, I don't know if it's real. It very well could be. The number is in to call in, Ethan. Like I said, you're going to have Skype. It's live. Fights of Friends. I have it up there on the board. I know Tony Ferguson is mad that Conor is retiring. He wanted to fight him so bad. He was calling out everybody in the game. Let's talk about the call-outs. He said just a few days ago that Nate Diaz, I owe that kid the trilogy fight. He agreed on Twitter, at least, to a fight with Donald Cerrone, which a lot of people, including myself, were very happy about. I'd also love to see the Nate Diaz trilogy. No matter what you think about this guy, call him attention whore, call him, drunk little leprechaun, all the little things that people have said about Conor McGregor. When he fights, everybody watches, and Conor McGregor knows this. You can only call wolf so many times, though. Like I said, the first time that he talked about retirement, it was an emotional issue. He had just seen a fighter die in the cage in front of him in one of the Ireland promotions, and it did shake him up very much. I believe he was very much shaken up. Of course, he said, hey guys, quick announcement. I've decided to retire from the sport formerly known as mixed martial arts today. Now, I want to break that down, the beginning of this. He is very known for sending cryptic tweets. As Twitter is a very good format to be cryptic, because you only get 280 characters. It used to be 140. Now you get 280. If you didn't know before, now you know, and knowing's half the battle. Anyways, he says, hey guys, quick announcement. I've decided to retire from the sport formerly known as mixed martial arts today. What does he mean by that? A lot of people say that this is the sport formerly known as mixed martial arts because Conor McGregor came in and ruined the game in their mind. He took it away from fighting. He took it away from fighting, the highest ranking fighter, fighting the best guys out there, the best guys getting the shot at the title. And whether he wants to admit it or not, he brung in this trash-talking era. He created Colby Covington. So if you're mad about Colby Covington, you can 100% blame it on Conor. Well, not 100%, but you can lay a lot of the blame on Conor McGregor. A lot of the blame also, of course, has to lay on Dana White because he encouraged this thing. So I put that video when there was the bus incident. When the bus incident happened, I put just a portion of that video in there, and this is right after it happened. Right after it happened. And this is where I'm going to get into the conspiracy. You want a conspiracy? I have you one of the greatest conspiracies in MMA history. Wait with me for just a minute and follow me. So, when I posted video of Conor McGregor attacking the bus from far back, just a small clip, I was immediately demonetized. And this is within 24 hours of the Conor McGregor bus incident. I've never talked about this before. I've waited till the right moment to talk about this. And there's actually two things that I'm going to talk about. One, a source that I talked to inside of the UFC at the time. Another about what happened to this video that I posted. So when I posted this video of Conor McGregor attacking the bus, mind you, this is within hours of it happening. I immediately received a copyright strike from the UFC because they had claimed ownership over what Dana had just called one of the most heinous acts in MMA and in UFC history. What's up, guys? What's up? What's going on? Arcade Chaos, Jeremy Swan, PR, Peter Ordinary, Matthew Campbell, Bill Hughes. I appreciate you guys. Comedic genius as always. I appreciate you guys coming in this last minute stream. But let me get back to my story now. So as soon as I posted that video of Conor McGregor attacking that bus, it was immediately claimed. The UFC had already copyrighted it. We know that they continued to show that footage over and over and over again as part of the build-up to that pay-per-view. But the UFC had already copyrighted it, and then Dana White's going to go and he's going to say, oh, we didn't know it was going to happen, yada, yada, yada. And what was said behind closed doors was Dana White in a fit when he was talking to the media. He had talked to the media about how we're going to have to deal with this with Conor McGregor. And he was in the rooms with some executives. He was in the room. God, I don't want to get... So I'm going to say this was overheard with Ari, the owner of WME, and several other people. And Dana White says, we got to get rid of this guy. He says, we got to suspend Conor McGregor. We got to suspend him for a year. We got to do something because we're bleeding, in the media. They're not going to take this properly. He went over the edge. This was a planned event. For those of you that haven't figured it out from the beginning, there's still a lot to argue about 9/11. The Conor McGregor attack was a planned event. It was in coordination with the UFC, with Dana White, with WME. They knew he was there that weekend. They didn't know exactly what he was going to do. Mike's UFC source might be... I do not reveal my anonymous sources. But Peter Ordinary, thank you for throwing one out there. Anyways, so I don't lose track. They knew he was going to be there. They knew he was going to attack the bus. Khabib Nurmagomedov knew he was going to attack the bus. So he was told about it. Not all the fighters knew exactly what was going on there. But the UFC definitely, 100%, I'm going to tell you, knew that Conor McGregor was going to attack that bus. I know it 100%. Thank you, Peter. I trust this source to the death. Yes, I'll die with my source. Like I said, they knew he was going to attack the bus. And I've been waiting to release that information. At the time when Dana White came in, and he's like, well, he went way overboard. He wasn't supposed to smash the window. He's injured some of my fighters. There's like 3-4 fighters on this card that can't even continue at this point. So, what do we do about this? What do we do about this? He says, this is a media nightmare. He says, we have to set a precedence. We have to. at least suspend Conor McGregor for a year. But he said, I want to do like I did with Jon Jones. And this is what Dana White proposed to WME. He said, I want to put a permanent ban on Conor McGregor. For those of you that don't remember, the UFC permanently banned Jon Jones when he was champion for the drunk driving incident when he hit that pregnant lady. So Dana White says, I want to put a permanent ban on him to show that we take it seriously. Then, 6 months, a year down the road, as Conor, does some community service, whatever, says some few nice things in some tweet. I'm obviously paraphrasing here. We'll invite him back into the UFC. We'll build him back up. He'll be a bigger star than ever, but now he's kind of like this bad boy that went off script. And he did go much further than what the UFC intended. From what I was told, Conor McGregor was supposed to bash the side of the bus with the garbage cans. He was supposed to bash. Yes, you're right, Billy. Called it an indefinite suspension. So, thank you. They didn't call it a permanent ban. I did misphrase that. Thank you, Billy Hughes. An indefinite suspension. Indefinite suspension, and then 6 months or so down the road, they would say, Conor McGregor, he's learned his lesson. He's free to come back. So, the WME, Ari, I would say in the room, Ari, the owner of the WME, and some of these guys said, if you bounce Conor McGregor, he told them flat out in this room, I don't know how much emotion was underneath this, but brace yourself for this. The UFC told Dana White in this room straight to his face, and I've talked about this with other sources that are big in the MMA community. I've shared this story, but this is the first time I've shared it on air. They told Dana White, you can take the bounce before Conor McGregor does because Conor McGregor is bigger than you. The WME at this time knew in this relationship, I think it's a better relationship now, they told Dana White, Conor McGregor is more important to this sport than Dana White, the guy who built this on Tough. The guy who, if it wasn't for putting together that first season of Tough, if it wasn't for the big finale fight with Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin, we probably would not have this sport. So, Dana White backs off. You've seen he immediately, after calling for retaliation against Conor, them doing something, he said it was the most horrendous act in the UFC. Within about 24, 48 hours, his tune has completely changed. He says, we're going to let the law handle this. Of course, Conor got a slap on the wrist. And he's like, he's like, the media handled this. He's like, if you don't think Conor has been suspended, then that he's been punished, he's got another thing coming. He's taken irreparable damage to his reputation. That was, Dana White, I'm paraphrasing, at the time. Zoltan says, I don't think was conspiracy or that they knew. It's not hard for MacLife to just show passes and all rush in, which is what happened. Conspiracy as far as, well, they definitely knew he was there. They definitely knew he was Ireland. They definitely knew he was going to attack the bus. So, I'll die on that sword. But Zoltan says, Matthew, I'm referring to Concur's tweet inferring he's moving on from MMA but continuing other kind of fighting. Let's go back to that. He says, I've now decided to retire from the sport formerly known as mixed martial arts today. Now, there is speculation out there, and I know what you're speculating to, Zoltan, that Billy Hughes' comment of the night so far, retiring from the sport formerly known as Big Booty Hose. Never retire, Billy. Never retire from that sport. But no problem, Dave Keller. Thanks for coming in on this late notice. Like I said, but Conor McGregor has been working with some other things and some other plans. He wants to launch his own MMA community beyond just SBG. He kind of has a community over there in Ireland, and he wants it to be a worldwide thing. As the few of you that signed on to the 1FC stream, and thank you for joining me at 1 o'clock in the morning. They were talking about how 1FC, they blow the roof off of UFC. UFC is lucky to get 1.5 million views for a big card on ESPN or when they were on Fox Sports 1. 1FC last year averaged 11 million viewers per show. So Conor McGregor believes that he is a bigger negotiating chip than the UFC. Zoltan says, I don't think there's evidence to say they knew he was going to attack the bus. Well, I'm just saying I have information. I have inside sources that are telling me that they knew that he was going to be in Ireland and that he was going to confront Khabib Nurmagomedov on the bus. And it sounds like what they were doing is, at the time, is he was supposed to go up there and yell, possibly throw a couple trash cans. He went over the board. He throwing the dolly through the window, doing everything that he did afterwards. And there was a journalist, and I'm having a hard time finding this article now, but there was a journalist in Amsterdam. Inside sources, hidden sources, get the fook out with that CNN BS, Zoltan. I love you, Zoltan, brother. But all right, you don't have to believe me, friend. But there are people inside this sport that do not. I'm not gonna throw them under the bus and put their jobs in jeopardy. I'm not somebody who comes out here all the time. I think there's one other time. I'm not sure if I ever have. I think there's one other time that I have called unnamed sources. So I've been holding on to this one for a while. Zoltan needs the documents. They're digital. Maybe someday somebody will find them. But I will say I did confirm this with somebody from another MMA organization that is big into the MMA world. Anyways, Conor McGregor wants to put his own organization out there. That's why he wanted a stake in the UFC, because he doesn't want to be done fighting. He's got enough money. He doesn't want to continue to keep getting hit in the head. He is a warrior. I do believe that with his ego, he does want 2 fights. I don't think he cares about giving Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier the rematches. That was some brilliant psychology, I would say. I would say the brilliant psychology behind saying Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier deserves those rematches is for him to come out and look at a guy like a guy that is sympathetic with someone that deserves rematches. As in, I think Max Holloway, I think most people believe today Max Holloway would have a very good chance of beating Conor McGregor. There's maybe some people that would argue to the contrary, but I think most people would probably pick Max Holloway. But Conor McGregor, for his ego, he wants the rematch against Nate Diaz. It would hurt his heart, I believe, very much to not beat him emphatically after losing to him once, and then they had the controversy over the second match. For those looking to call in, like I said, it is up here in the chat, but I will post it one more time. It is on Skype. It is live. Fights with Friends. And let me know if you've sent me a request. In Skype, I have to accept it because I do want to know who is on there. But he wants those rematches. He wants the Nate Diaz rematch, and he wants the Khabib Nurmagomedov rematch. And in his world, he thinks he can beat those two guys, and then he leaves unscathed from the game, avenging all of his losses. And he can leave and start his own promotion, which he will. He will make a very big effort to start his own promotion. If he doesn't get a part of the UFC, he will join his own promotion. Skype is a screen guard where I'm from. That's hilarious. McGregor will tune up any non-wrestler in his fantasy. Most non-wrestlers, I believe he will, Trevi. I think Max Holloway would give him some issues. Not to get too far off topic here. But Arcade Chaos says, yeah, but who in their right effing mind would watch Conor McGregor as their boss? Very good point. Very, very good point. As humble as he has tried to seem since the phone incident and other things that he's kind of done, getting himself legally in trouble, both speculative and both reported. He's had a lot of issues over there in Ireland, from his issues with the Kinahan gang, where he supposedly had a hit on his life, to the illegitimate pregnancy. He had sex out of wedlock with a woman over there in Ireland, and she is trying to claim that it's Conor McGregor's baby. Conor McGregor saying otherwise. That is somewhat speculation, but he does not deny that he had consensual relations with that woman. So I'll give him one up on our former president, Bill Clinton. But Peter Ordinary, what? I'm going to tune up my dog for eating my... Oh, okay. I only read eating my burger when I was in the shitter. And for a second, Peter Ordinary, I thought you were saying you were eating your burger in the shitter. I hate when my dog eats my food. Anyways, he definitely wants his own deal. He has the Irish media, the police, everything over in Ireland basically right now revolves around Conor McGregor. This is only a population of about 6 million people. And yes, this is a negotiating contact. This is a negotiating, tactic. Why couldn't I not think of that word? That's ridiculous. It's a negotiating tactic, but at the same time, I believe he will walk away. He didn't want to be the co-main event. Then he says, yes, I'll be the co-main event for with Donald Cerrone, if you give me a percentage of the UFC. He literally wanted a percentage of the UFC for fighting as a co-main event. So Conor McGregor's price tag, I believe at this point, may have surpassed what the UFC is willing to pay him. I beat Max with a torn ACL. You guys are haters. I think I've been fair for the most part in covering Conor McGregor over the years. The fact that I cover him so much, I mean, all publicity is good publicity, right? I love watching him fight as much as anybody. But yes, I think he will walk away from the game. I'm not a big fan of his whiskey. I think it needs to age a little longer. And then I'll definitely give it another try. He's given 15% to first responders, I believe, for each bottle of whiskey that sells. So I'm big on something like that, as in like big charities. But I think he does want to do his own reality show. He wants to do his own MMA league. The guy, he wants movies like Michael Bisping. He's had offers for movies. He's had offers that he's turned down. They've made a movie about his life. It was in the theaters. Conor McGregor, the Notorious. The guy's star shines very bright right now. Despite losing his last match, he went on Jimmy Fallon. Of course, that aired last night. For those of you that seen it last night and said, hey, this is, he was just on Jimmy Fallon last night saying he was going to fight. What is this? That was taped over 2 weeks ago. Now they're just showing it That's the way the old school media works. Myself, Joe Rogan, some other people, we put ourselves out there live. I'll throw Alex Jones in there. We put ourselves out there live, so when we make a mistake, we can't go back and edit it. And I make plenty of mistakes and misspeak plenty of times. But that's why Jimmy Fallon did that. So Conor McGregor, 2 weeks in Conor McGregor's world with alcohol and whatever, he definitely could have changed his mind within 2 weeks. 7, Conor at WrestleMania. You beat me to the punch. I do believe Conor will make an appearance at WrestleMania. And I think he is going to try his hand at WWE. Trevi says, Holloway has CTE now, guys. FYI. I had thought he talked kind of punchy, and then I went back on several videos of Max Holloway, and he's kind of always talked like that. But I missed that. Sorry, Billy. I'm gonna go back. That looks like good comment. I feel you. I just don't think. It's that expensive when DAZN costs more and has been garbage. Yeah, DAZN has raised it up to $20 a month. I'll probably end up paying my $100 for the year only because I cover fights. Otherwise, I would tell him to fuck off. He had sex out of wedlock, guys. Are no joking. Yeah, that's. I can bring up information on that if you guys want to look at a small article about a lady that says she has Conor McGregor's. But no, I don't believe it was out of wedlock. I believe I misspoke. When they were dating, when he was dating what I believe is his current wife. I believe they're dated now. So give me just a minute and I'll bring up a article here. I need a young Jamie. I need a protege that has nothing to do and likes to work for somebody that has no money. So this is from Ireland. Ireland Sport. Let me see if this is the article that I was thinking about. Terry Murray, 26, says her 1-year-old daughter, Claudia, was born 9 months after she allegedly slept with Conor McGregor. That says allegedly. I believe there was another legitimate argument that was saying he didn't deny sleeping with her, but that the baby wasn't his. Oh, this is one of these stupid sites that wants you to do a bunch of crap to remove ads. Probably a virus. No. Conor McGregor shrugged off claims from a single mother that he fathered her daughter with some fatherly love. Terry Murray, 26, his 1-year-old daughter Claudia was born 9 months after she allegedly slept with McGregor in Liverpool, reports the Mirror. Terry met McGregor, 30, when he traveled to Liverpool for the Grand National in 2017, 4 weeks before D. Devlin gave birth to their first child, Conor Jr. And I'll put this up there if this ends up being the article that I want. McGregor posted a cryptic message on Saturday with the UFC superstar denying he's the father and claimed she slept with one of his friends. Okay, that's not what I was looking at. The Irishman took to Instagram as he once again shrugged off the allegations. Okay, I thought that I had read that he admitted to sleeping with her. This looks a little different than what I thought I had seen, and if I was mistaken, I apologize. And so it was possible that I was mistaken on that. But let me bring up this article since I've already kind of put myself out there on it. Okay, you can read it here. This is the Irish Mirror. This is out of Ireland. This is a pretty popular site, I believe, over there in Ireland. This is from February 4th. That is the supposed mother. Conor McGregor shrugged off claims from a single mother that he fathered her daughter with some fatherly love. Terry Murray, 26, says her 1-year-old daughter, Claudia, was born 9 months after she allegedly slept with McGregor in Liverpool, reports the Mirror. Terry met McGregor 30 when he traveled to Liverpool for the Grand National in 2017, 4 weeks before D. Devlin gave birth to their first child, Conor Jr. McGregor posted a cryptic message on Saturday with the UFC superstar denying he's the father and claims she slept with one of his friends. The Irishman later took to Instagram as he once again shrugged off the allegations. And of course, this site's going to make it harder for me to see what those Instagram posts are right now. So I didn't expect to be addressing that, so I didn't have them ready. But I can look at those and to post on a later video if anyone's interested. McGregor posted footage on board of a plane in the early hours of Sunday morning with his son Conor Jr. Looking smugly into the camera, McGregor used the teeth-whitening tool as he listens through his headphones. 30-year-old then strokes his head on Conor Jr. wearing his pajamas. Also sent a message to Dr. Dre as his son put on the Beats by Dre, adding PJs on the PJ. It's all love, Dre. McGregor says he learned of the claims on Friday night, making a trip to a local tanning salon. Terry claims she had sex with McGregor at the Grand National. Photos of McGregor and Terry allegedly taken in the bathroom of his hotel suite. His hand appears to be sliding under her black leather miniskirt. Well, this is definitely not the picture because that's his child there. Okay, this is the picture. And I'm sorry to go way off track here. I know, Trevor McTrev, you're going to say I'm just bringing Conor McGregor down that much more right now. But this is the picture that was taken of him with her in the bathroom because it was addressed. So I'm protecting myself because I threw an allegation out there. She said it. In the room was an in-suite bathroom, and he's gone, baby. I'll give you a home movie. Never mind a picture. I was laughing and looking in the mirror, and he's got his arm around me, and I've got to take a photo. Then I thought, well, Conor McGregor, I know it is bad. He has a girlfriend, but I was thinking about that. I just started kissing him back. I remember saying, have you got a girlfriend? Yes, I do remember reading this. And he said he had been on and off with this girl for years. We slept together, to be honest. There was no sleep. We were not sleeping. Do you know what I mean? McGregor's management was approached for comment. And we'll see if they have... Maybe that's the end of that article. I thought I had read another article. So if I did take you on a little bit of a rabbit hole, I apologize. We are getting a little off track here, but... So sometimes those things are fun. Sometimes it's fun to go down those rabbit holes for sure. But I do believe that there's a good chance that Conor McGregor will show up at WWE. So that was a good call there. I think he shows up at WWE. I think that he does announce his own promotion. He has his own promotion. He has McGregor Promotions, which he co-promoted. He was the third co-promoter, for those of you who don't know, on the Floyd Mayweather fight. It was Floyd Mayweather Productions. I want to say Showtime Productions, so maybe there was 4. Showtime was there. The UFC was there. I believe the only time the UFC has ever co-promoted any fight, which just shows you how much they think of Conor McGregor, because they were unwilling to co-promote with M1 Global to get Fedor Emelianenko back in the day, because that was the stipulation for Fedor back in the day to fight in the UFC. Let's go to the comments. Like I said, if you want to call in on Skype, send me a request at live fights with friends Some people call that a colon. Dean in the house. Got to address Dean. What's up? Thought I'd pop in long enough to say hi to everyone. Now it's off. I'm sorry. Dennis sucks, man. Godspeed, Dennis. I'll pop the chair for you guys and say, call in. Oh, and call in. All right, Billy. I am awaiting Billy's call. He already has my Skype here, so I'd like to hear what Billy has to say about this. My break is over to work like a sucker. Coal mining sucks. Committing genius. Oh, that's hilarious. That is great. Lazy High Force Whitaker, I'm guessing. Okay, well, you're reaching pretty hard to make him a bad guy. All right, Trevi, I did say that I give him credit for giving 15% back to Proper Whiskey. I gave him my money for Proper Whiskey, and I'll pay to see him fight anytime he fights. That's a fact, Jack. I love to see Conor McGregor fights every time he fights, whether you love him or hate him. And trust me, in the past, I've definitely been rooting for him at times, and I've rooted against him at times. And he has made a ton of money, not just... I'm not sure why it's ringing on my phone here, Billy, but it's not ringing. Well, we took it last time that way, so let's just do it that way. Not sure why it's not ringing in the on the computer. What's up, Billy?
Choking on life. What's up, man?
Not much, man. Billy Hughes in the house. Let me know how you guys can hear this. But what do you think of this? What do you have to add to this conversation? And first, before I say that, thank you for your help this week during the NCAA tournament. Sweet 16 coming back on Thursday.
Yeah, just go ahead and send me an email with the plans. But as me and Peter were talking, I think it's an USADA test.
Really?
I think he got popped, and they're about to make it public. And so that paired with the stuff going down in Miami, he's done with the UFC, and he's going to do his own thing. He worded it correctly, formerly known as mixed martial arts. It's a cryptic message because that's kind of like what he does. He's going to promote his own stuff, probably locally to start. Wait for some of the people, the bigger names in the UFC, to come out of their contracts and try to start poaching is what I think might happen.
Okay, can you? RS says Billy might be right. All right, yeah. That I thought of a lot of different things. I had not actually thought of that. And like I said, I had a decent source in the UFC that has said that he's had issues with cocaine. But that's not on the list of banned substances. I didn't realize that maybe he had taken anything else. Maybe after the Khabib Nurmagomedov fight, maybe he hadn't taken in the past, and maybe there was some temptation to say, hey, I want to avenge these 2 losses before I retire. Do you think that was the incentive? Maybe he thought he had kind of lost a step, or he just didn't want to train as hard?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think that the test is probably going to come back in like February, maybe early February, late January, because you got to remember they're gung-ho about Conor and Cowboy fighting in April, and out of nowhere, Conor says, "Oh, I can't be prepared for this fight." So I think he was fighting possibly a positive test, and that's why he wanted to push the Cowboy fight back, and I think he lost. So that's just my conspiracy theory, I guess.
Huh. Well, if he was popped, I mean, right now he's temporarily already suspended. So I imagine the UFC, since, you saw this kind of in-house, they would combine those suspensions. They would say, time served with the suspension from Nevada State Athletic Commission, and then he would probably still be able to fight in November. But maybe
I think it was an out-of-combat what do you call it?
Out-of-competition test. Yeah, it would have been an out-of-competition test. I don't know when that would have happened. Like I said, he's eligible to come back next month, I believe it is. I don't know if you remember.
Next month, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you. I can't remember the exact date, but it was 6 months retroactive to UFC 229. I believe it's April 6th.
Yeah, and the original date would have been that first Saturday in April, and they ended up changing it to the pay-per-view that's coming up, Adesanya, Gastelum, and Holloway Poirier. But that originally was supposed to be Cowboy and McGregor.
Oh, I didn't know that they had actually set a date for that. I knew that both guys had agreed on Twitter to fight each other. Conor saying, "Congratulations, I'll give you the fight."
This is what Cowboy said. Cowboy said they were shooting for the pay-per-view in April with Conor. Conor backed out and asked for the fight to be in July. And then he balked again, and that's why Cowboy ended up getting Ally Quinta. But this is all from, you can search for what Cowboy's interviews were. He's the one that said that him and Conor were targeted for the April pay-per-view.
Huh. I'm gonna have to look at those, and maybe I did see something about that and I didn't understand it, or maybe I just forgot it in reading everything else. But yeah, with Cowboy fighting Ally Quinta now, I was surprised how quickly they announced that, but in a way I kind of wasn't, because Cowboy's the kind of guy, he's not going to waste a lot of time waiting to fight. He likes to stay very active, even if he says he wants to be less active now.
Well, they've also strung him along. He's been trying to get these two big fights. Conor's backed out of 2 different fights, and then the whole Nate Diaz, will he, won't he, back and forth stuff. I think he was just done, and Ally Quinta is the top 10 fighter, and Cowboy's main goal is to be a champion. So if he can't get his dream fight, he's just going to keep climbing that ladder at 155.
Yeah, I'm going to address RS for a second here, because it looks like he's making some good points. He says, yeah, it makes more sense that he popped because Dana was agreeing with the retirement, which is weird. Dana should want Conor to fight till he is 60. Yeah, I don't think Conor is cheating, but it's the coke for sure. Conor has been doing a ton of coke lately, at least those are the rumors in Ireland. Coke is, you cannot get suspended for an out-of-competition test for cocaine, though. It's not on the list of banned substances. Only for in-competition testing. So you probably remember, Billy, when they released that test positive for cocaine for Jon Jones out of competition. They came back later and said that that was a mistake, that they were not supposed to have released it.
Right, but he also tested positive for cocaine after one of the fights. I think it was the second Cormier fight, right? Or the first one?
I thought he tested positive for Toronto Bowl both times. Oh, I thought he tested. I thought the cocaine for that one wasn't out of competition, but I could be incorrect. I'm not sure about the timing on that. He definitely did test positive, yes, RS, for cocaine. Jon Jones did, and yes, cocaine is not on the banned substance list for out of competition.
But truthfully, I don't think we'll ever know exactly the truth unless Conor wants to do a tell-all book down the road. But
what incentive does he have
at that age? So
what? Oh, what's that?
No one's gonna stay completely retired at his age. I mean, no one thought GSP would come back, and he finally came back. So I think he's just transitioning to, like you said, do his own thing and break away from the restraints that the UFC has over him.
Yeah, I could see him making his own promotion, and if you're looking to launch your own promotion and you really want to stick it to the UFC. Now, contracts get sticky here. I'm not sure how it goes country to country, possibly, because usually if you retire and you're on contract with the UFC, you have so many fights, you can't fight anywhere else. Possibly he could fight in Ireland and get away with that. But if he really does want to stick it to the UFC, what better way to announce that he's doing a new promotion and going to be fighting for them than at WrestleMania and steal the thunder of Brock Lesnar, and one Daniel Cormier, who has said himself on ESPN that he may show up at WrestleMania.
But see, WrestleMania is in 12 days, and they already have stuff set up with two of the hosts from Saturday Night Live. They're going to be performing in one of the matches. They have Ronda being the first female to ever main event at WrestleMania.
Yes.
And they also have a musical guest that's yet to be announced. So if they do have something going on with Conor, this has already been set up months and months ago.
Yeah, I don't know. And Conor's, I'll throw two things out there for that. Trevi Matrev, I know you're a huge Conor fan. I'm sorry if I offended you. I report the news as it sees. There's a lot of people that don't even want me to talk about Conor McGregor because they believe he gets way too much publicity. So take that for what it is. But I'll say two things about that. One, Conor McGregor has been known to go off script and not really follow a script, so he could possibly even surprise the WWE. Another thing, Vince McMahon is the consummate showman. He's very good at what he does, and I don't think he would be in a match, Torrin Brown, but if Vince McMahon, if a guy with that big of a name and that much controversy and everything surrounding him says 12 days before an event, I want a minute in your show, I can't see for a second Vince McMahon turning that down.
Do you remember in 2010, 2009, when Vince McMahon called Lorenzo Fertitta and asked him what it would cost for Vince to buy the UFC?
I do remember that, and I also remember some conversations between Vince McMahon and Dana White. But go ahead and go forth with this.
I can't remember the exact details because it's been a while, but it was when the UFC was starting to boom, and I believe it was when Brock Lesnar came back to the WWE after being UFC champion, that Vince McMahon saw the money that UFC was making, but he thought he could put his own, finesse into it and add some more of his scripted material to bring up, buy rates and hype to the fights.
Yes.
And so he offered to buy the company, and then he also tried to buy a stake in the company, and they actually got down the road of doing it, but the Fertittas decided to keep it, and later on they ended up selling to WMG, I think it's called.
Yeah, WME, which changed its name since there. What's up, E. Judd? Said, hey, Mike, what's up, bud? Conor's going to the WWE. He can't compete against the talent that's out there now. I do want to add one thing to that conversation. I know Dana White actually had some conversations with Vince McMahon at that time, said that they had some very good conversations, and it was after that meeting that you've seen the UFC kind of start to use, I would say, some of these WWE kind of tactics, different things. Yes, Brock Lesnar coming over, some of the different ways that they did promos.
This actually originally started, if anyone in the chat rooms watches WWE like I do, they'll know Brock Lesnar's hype man manager, Paul Heyman, the former owner of ECW. Dana White hired Paul Heyman to come in and coach Shane Carwin on how to do promos to hype up the Shane Carwin-Brock Lesnar fight. Because Shane Carwin was kind of scared on the mic, pretty humble guy. And
he was horrible on the mic. He was an engineer. Engineers don't make good speakers.
Right. I actually met Shane Carwin, one of the best days of my life. He is a humongous human being.
He seems like a super nice guy as well. That's awesome. Really cool. I hope you got a picture.
I did. I was actually working at our local restaurant here, and he came in with his whole fight camp, and I was working the front desk, and I kept walking by like a teenage girl. So
as Joe Rogan would say, I understand.
But that's originally how Vince McMahon and them all came in the same room. Was back in 2007 that fight was, right? 2008, 2007?
Yeah, I don't remember for sure. I really haven't kept up with WWE much. Those people that are in WWE, though, looks like me and Billy are going to do something for a Sunday WrestleMania as well. So that is the day before the national championship, the NCAA national championship. So a lot of stuff going on. All right, Mitch Mack, have a good day at work, man. Sorry you have to work. Have a good one, man.
See the chat room, Mike. What's everyone saying?
RS was surprised. He said, really, the UFC hired him? Which I didn't know either. And he says, so the UFC tries to make fighters trash talk. The UFC, so we said they don't coach the fighters to do PR. Okay, now I will defend Dana White when it comes down to that, because I've talked to several fighters. If you listen to the Randy Couture interview, even he said that the UFC did not coach him. It was only the one time, I believe it was the fight with Cheeto, that they asked him to maybe sell it a little bit more. I can't remember exactly what the specifics were, but he was very diligent in saying that the UFC did let them do their own thing. So these guys are, kind of free agents as far as that is concerned. I'm not going to drag Dana White's name through the mud unnecessarily. If anybody has motive to drag it through the mud, it's Randy Couture, and he set me straight on that immediately.
Right. I want to bring up a comment that Peter said about probably like 20 minutes ago of and I know it's not on the Conor thing, but it kind of goes in. The Reebok deal, everything has changed since the Reebok deal, and I think without the Reebok deal, there would be more money that they could bring to the table to keep fighters happy like Conor. Well, all the fighters happy because they could have their own sponsorships. And I think it's just a ticking time bomb waiting for that Reebok deal to run out. And we'll see a whole full-sale change in what we see when that deal finally expires.
Do you know when that deal expires? What's up, Sarah and Zayman? How's it going?
I still think it's like 3 years at least.
Yeah, I thought they had a pretty good amount of time on that one. Yeah, I think if Reebok wants to stay in the game at this point, obviously they're going to have to put out a lot more money. And that you seen, for those of you that don't know, I think I might have talked about this, or nobody that's seen, the UFC just updated their contract with ESPN. ESPN signed on for 2 more years. So we're now 7 years with the ESPN. Dana White also renegotiated and signed on for 2 more years as the commit. So that's the team we're going to have for at least the next 7 years.
I'm surprised how many people in the chat rooms were upset about the ESPN deal. I mean, it's only $5 a month, and I understand like money's tight for everyone nowadays. But I mean, for a true diehard fan, most of us would have had Fight Pass and.
Yeah, so I love the ESPN deal. I will be honest that the ESPN deal, it does hurt people like me, because people that can't afford the fights, that are listening, some of you, I love that some of you guys watch along and then we all talk about it together. People that are just listening to it to hear what's happening by audio, it does take some of those viewers. And I can look directly at my viewership and the viewership of, I would say, my competitors, but I have no ill will towards them, that are in the same industry. And all of our numbers are down since the ESPN Plus deal, despite much better cards and more cards. So they're definitely selling those memberships.
I don't know if it's so much the price. It's the accessibility. It's kind of, when you hear ESPN, you automatically think every card's going to be on the cable version. And since it's on the streaming platform, less people are finding it. I think they need to do a better way of somehow guiding people there. And don't forget, anyone listening, that you do get there is a free trial on ESPN to see if you like it. So if you have an event that you really, really want to see and you cannot afford it, do the free trial and get that event for free and tune in.
Yeah, that is a really good deal. Thank you for the support, RS. Even though he streams illegally, he still watches fights with friends. I'll take it. All UFC fights should be on TV. Anyways, way more exposure for the sport. Do you think they're headed towards getting rid of pay-per-view with the Zone, the ESPN Plus deal, boxing even kind of going over towards that model with the Zone still having some pay-per-views but not very many?
Yeah, it's the WWE's model. They got rid of all their pay-per-views and just went to streaming. And, DAZN's a whole other can of worms right now. But with the UFC and ESPN, the UFC was brought in strictly for the streaming service. ESPN's end game is to get rid of their cable network and strictly be a streaming service. So 10 years down the road, there will not be ESPN on cable. In fact, we might not have cable as we know it in 10 years. So the UFC is the flagship for ESPN Plus. That was the entire idea when they went into bed with this whole deal. So
wow,
we got what we get.
Wow, that I had not heard that. I hadn't even thought of that. I knew that cable was kind of going on its way out. I mean, they're going to have to update the infrastructure of the internet in this country, though, because I still know a lot of people that cannot get, my parents included, a good friend, Ryan the Savage, that used to do this on the show before it was a fight channel. For those of you that didn't watch it before it was a fight channel, this used to be kind of a new current events, politics, and even a little conspiracy show called Mike Reviews It All. And I did a couple fight casts, and they were way more successful. So that's what, that's how this came to be. But now I'm losing my train of thought of what we were talking about that there. I apologize. Oh, people that not everyone has great internet speed. So maybe some of these people in these big companies like Disney, maybe they know something more than we do. They're in bed, with Comcast. They have big relationships. Maybe Google Fiber is going to hit more places in the country. But I still hear of people that can't get ESPN Plus.
I don't know if Washington has any of the same ideas. I'm in Colorado, and what we're trying to do here is city by city, we're setting up city internet. So everyone that's in the city limits gets a certain type of internet. It's taking a long time to install it, so I understand why this is going to be a long process, because they have to gut everything to do this. But their end game here is to have internet access for anyone that's in a city environment. Now, out in the country, that's going to be a little bit harder, but if we do that nationally, then that's what we need to do to offer all this so everyone can have internet access, because you should. It's the way we are this day and age. You have to have internet to get information across now.
Yeah, that's very true. Artist says, that's cool. Does it exist in other cities? I'm not sure what he's talking about exists in other cities. So is that all the same company there in Colorado, though, or is it something in-house?
The internet's going to be, how you have your water bill and your...
So they want to make it a utility, which some people have argued against.
Yeah, so they're turning internet into a utility, exactly. So it would just be on your city bill every month.
And then the city would basically own it, but then they would still work with somebody like you have your electric or water company that already, via Enron of California. They were a huge electric company. That's a name that just comes to mind for a lot of people. That's interesting. I didn't know that, because I know Google Fiber was having a very, very hard time getting into places because of the zoning between Verizon Frontier and Comcast, which are the two big providers here.
Right, Comcast has it on lockdown where I'm at right now. It's almost a monopoly, and they can charge whatever they want, which is why the cities started to do this, is because they couldn't get any other companies to come into the area and offer internet. So...
Huh. Yeah, they pretty much lead down here, too. You can have Verizon Frontier, which is going to be just fine for somebody that just, they have maybe two people in the house. They watch a little bit of Netflix. They surf the internet a little bit. Verizon's going to be fine. But if you're streaming like I am, if you're gaming, if you have 6 people in the house, all one Wi-Fi, Verizon's just not going to cut it. So as far as, the highest speed, Comcast definitely kind of has a monopoly here as well. Judd says we should grow some good bud. We're in Colorado and Washington. What do you think with the Billy and Mike's buds?
I will not comment, but that may have already happened. Wink, wink.
Well, we'll talk after the show. We don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, I can't give away all the secrets,
Saren says, Conor run to the championship was legendary. He changed the game and Jeremy Stevens for the better. Oh, that's hilarious, Saren Zaman. I never thought of that. They were going back on that Who the Fook is that guy video the other day, and people were saying, hey, he actually made a bigger name for Jeremy Stevens by acting like he was a nobody. That's pretty hilarious.
If I could pivot real quick, Mike, to another big problem in the MMA world currently, is there any more news on Tony Ferguson's situation?
The last I heard, they were trying to get... He was that tweet that I think I shared that the UFC was helping in and working with him, and that it looks like he's going into some kind, going to get some kind of help. He said he's going to get some kind of help. My thinking is probably a 90-day, some kind of mental rehabilitation or CTE. Nobody has said the word CTE, so that's speculation on my part. But my thinking would be, like I've talked about before, they have these CTE and PTSD centers that Kat Zingano talked about having huge success with after her shots from Amanda Nunes. I think that maybe that's the place for Tony Ferguson to go, but I think everybody has said, pretty much UFC, Tony Ferguson, and everybody, that he's not fighting, at least in the near future.
Has Eddie Bravo commented on it?
That I don't know. I don't listen to his regular podcast. Which I should. If I have more time. That's another podcast I need to add to my list. I only hear him when he goes on Joe Rogan. So if anybody knows, feel free to mention. RS says it seems schizophrenia. I've also kind of thought that that's a possibility as well. Some people have said drugs, which is obviously total speculation.
If you listen to like Eddie Bravo talk about the training camps that him and Tony do up in Big Bear, the actions that Tony takes up there, where he wants to be isolated and he's often alone in a room by himself, that I've always thought, even before this, that there is a screw loose or something's off right there, because it just doesn't seem the natural way of preparing for a fight when he wants to isolate himself so much.
Well, that is... okay, now a lot of people have said that there's probably a screw loose with Tony Ferguson. So, I mean, there's definitely that speak out there. There definitely is, especially between the old school guys. And that was kind of one of the reasons for Big Bear was... originally Oscar De La Hoya, I believe he owned it, and he went up to Big Bear because he wanted to get away from everything and be in isolations. Boxers used to do that a lot more. They would take just a few sparring partners. But I kind of think the UFC, because there's so many skills involved, it would be a little harder to isolate yourself for a camp like that. So I'm not sure. I even know... people in lower levels and, in boxing, that, because I know a lot of fighters, friends that are fighters, and most of them think of glory. Most of them don't have a whole lot of friends. They can find in a few people. A lot of them are very private, and a lot of them do isolate themselves during these types of camps. I hope that wasn't too long-winded.
No, not at all. And then the other thing coming up is the Gaethje-Barbosa fight, and Gaethje being one of our local Colorado fighters. The buzz is getting to an all-time level here, because everyone is not thinking too strongly that Gaethje's going to make it out of this one. Barbosa just seems to be the prohibitive favorite, if you ask me.
I'm not gonna give away my pick on that fight. I've studied this quite a bit, and I think my pick on that fight is gonna really surprise a lot of people. I think it's gonna blow them away, and I think it's gonna be the first fight that I'm gonna try to go to bed on. I'm gonna talk with the wife, but I have a very, very strong feeling that fight's not gonna look like a lot of people think it's gonna look.
I'm just surprised that he's not getting as much local support. I mean, he's getting the support, but people aren't backing him how they have for his last couple fights, even when he was probably an underdog, when he fought Alvarez, for instance.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that he wasn't getting the support of it. Justin Gaethje's definitely one of my probably all-time favorite fighters, and that's pretty quick way to say it, but man, that guy has just got a style that you can't help but love that guy.
There's also murmurs because there's a lot of people worried about him because of how many punches he's taking.
Well, he's worried about himself. Correct me if I'm wrong, before his last fight, I believe he said if he didn't win that he might retire after that fight, or that if he kept fighting at this style, he only had a few left.
Everything I've heard is he's going to fight 3 more times and then he's going to retire.
Okay, 3 more times. I knew he was looking for a short road. I want
of his fights on the contract.
He has 3 fights left on the contract.
Yeah.
My God, anybody who wants to see some of his former fights too, and also some great fights, you forget about how many good fights and good fighters were over in World Series of Fighting. So it's no surprise that Ray Cefa was putting on a great product there with PFL. That guy he's been a combat mind genius. Not only just a competitor, but a genius for years.
Do you think Ray Cefa did the right thing about shutting down World Series and changing it to PFL? Because I do.
So far it looks to be well, because he signed with ESPN. He's putting on... I think it's absolutely genius. I think it's something different than what everybody has right now. I almost think sometimes like the UFC might benefit from taking some breaks, having this, because people just, once you have it every single week, which I'm not complaining for the most part, but it's kind of like football. You don't have it to look forward to. You're like, oh, I'll miss this one. I'll catch next week's. And PFL has, they have an actual schedule. So you have something to look forward to. You have time to plan the events once people start getting excited about it. Hey, come over for, this event April 9th. I can plan a big party. Like the UFC pay-per-views used to be when you only had UFC. I remember when you only had UFC. Well, of course, I remember when it was like once or twice a year. But I remember for quite a while, it was only about 8-10 times a year.
Yeah, I mean, I've always watched the UFC since UFC 1, but I always would get the tape from, like, the video store later on,
Yep.
I started covering the pay-per-views in 2005, like almost all of us. The Chuck and Randy pay-per-view after the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. But they were only doing 3 pay-per-views a year back then, sometimes only 2. And then in 2007, they started doing the monthly ones.
Yeah, I thought I remembered a time where they were... Well, I think they were just on pay-per-view before the Spike contract, though. Because
they had some fights on Fox Sports. If you remember when Chuck fought Vitor...
I do. But they fought on the best damn sports show, UFC 38 and a half.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely forgot about that. That was a great show, by the way. And then Fox... That was when it was Fox Sports. And Fox Sports folded. Fox Sports Net. I thought it was just Fox Sports, or maybe it was just Fox Sports Net. Fox Sports folded, I believe, because they could never tell you when something was supposed to be on. Their scheduling was absolutely horrendous.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember that.
Well, they're doing it again right now. Fox is selling off all of their stuff, and Fox Sports owns a bunch of regional sports networks. And I think Disney bought them, but they're putting it back up for sale because it's a conflict of interest with the ESPN network.
Really? I think maybe I had heard some murmurings of that. Maybe it was from you. But yeah, I don't know a lot of. That's very interesting. I was very frustrated with how incompetent they were about it the first time. FS1, because I really liked Fox Sports. Best Damn Sports Show was one of my favorite shows.
Though, by the way.
Oh, what's that?
The deal that I'm talking about does not include FS1 or FS2. It's
just the okay.
Regional sports networks that covers like your local basketball team or your local baseball team. So it would be like Fox Sports South, Fox Sports Oregon, Fox Sports Oklahoma. Those are the ones that are up for sale.
Interesting. Since you mentioned the Gaethje Barbosa, I just brought up our poll so far. That 61% of you are saying Barbosa, 59% by finish, 2% by decision, 87 votes in so far. Gaethje not getting a lot of love. This is kind of looking like last week. 104 of you voted, and only 34% thought Pettis was going to win, which really surprised even me. I would not be as surprised if Gaethje won this one. Like I said, I'll go into that a little bit more later because I want to make a whole video on that. I think I have a pick that's going to kind of surprise everybody as far as that. But make sure you get over to Fights of Friends and vote in that poll if you want your voice heard as far as the Gaethje Barbosa fight. And as we've talked about, I think that's one of the best fights that the UFC's announced in a long time as far as striking battle.
I agree. I'm going to jump off and hopefully someone else will call in, so I don't want to take up everyone's time. So anyway, it was great chatting with you, and just shoot me an email for what our plan is for Thursday and Friday. All
right, I'll have to look at that schedule. Definitely will. Thanks for calling in, Billy, and look forward to him on NCAA chat. And did you want to talk at all before you go about future plans, or we save that for a later time? We can talk about it later. That's fine. All right. Thank you, Billy. All right. Let's go to the comment section and address some of you guys here. So I think Gaethje has a better, good footwork and better boxing. I think round 2 KO win versus Gaethje. RS, one of the ones going for Gaethje. Justin isn't from Colorado, he's from Arizona. Yeah, I honestly wasn't sure where he was actually from. I think he's training out of Colorado now. What's up, Nathan Spratt? How's it going? And for Reverb Twang, thanks for coming in. I would love to see Matt Hughes in his prime fight Conor McGregor. He definitely was a beast. I don't know that he might stand up to Conor. I don't know. Thank you, Saturday. Billy. He says trains here in Colorado. We will announce it during the Saturday Fight Cast. All right, sounds good. Justin's going to sleep Barbosa in the first. Arcade Chaos, I believe, has called both upsets. I know Arcade Chaos called Pettis last week. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you told us all that Jorge Masvidal was going to knock out Stephen Thompson. I know you got the Pettis one right. When are we going to talk Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier 2 fight? Whenever Torrin Brown wants to. I think that's a good segment to move into right now. So let's go through that real quick. I want to, if this is Conor McGregor's last fight, I don't know. Let's through this. I'm going to play a few sound bites and a little bit of speculation as to how Conor McGregor came upon us. This was an early interview in 2012, actually with Kenny Florian, where he shouted out these famous words.
Thank you very much. Dana, 60 G's, baby!
So he said 60 G's, baby. That was before the performance bonus was even given out. That's when, for those of you that don't know, the performance bonus used to be $60,000. Then it ended up going down to $50,000. They had even talked about getting rid of it at one time. But Conor's never been afraid to ask for anything. This has been from the very beginning. He's been a great self-promoter. Arcade should join us on MMA Playgrounds with his great fight picks. Yes, he should. Let me throw that link up there real quick for those of you that haven't done it yet. MMA Playground. I will say we are doing that. And who won that between the three of us last week, Billy? No, just teasing. I'm joking because I actually had some decent picks for once last week, but this is mostly luck. But RS's Conor accomplished so much in a short time span. He absolutely did. And for those of you that call a lot of us Conor haters, RS has had, some negative views on Conor, but honesty coming through. And yes, he accomplished a lot in a very, very short amount of time. And he was one of the best in the trash talk. Let's listen to a little bit of some of his moments from here recently during Khabib Nurmagomedov press conference. This is right before UFC 229. Conor McGregor brung his proper whiskey, proper 12, supposedly snuck it up there, and this is an exchange between him and Khabib Nurmagomedov.
But kid, don't be talking like 2014 about Twitter in 2012.
No. I have a question. Give me an answer.
Twitter, who's on Twitter?
What's wrong with you?
That's my bollocks.
No. I send you a message. We talk with you.
Fuck your message.
Yes,
I don't type the blokes, mate. It's not my thing.
But, okay.
It's not my thing.
Why you don't send me a message like without everybody? Why you don't send? We're gonna fight.
And there Conor McGregor is getting up and kind of acting like he needs to be restrained by Dana White. And that was the famous send message, send location kind of talk by Khabib Nurmagomedov that didn't hurt his career. 2013 when Conor said 50 G's, baby. Thank you, Torrin Brown. Arcade, don't let the main page overwhelm you. Oh, yes, it does look a little busy, the MMA Playground, but it's very easy to pick. Once you get in there, and we got a request from Torrin Brown to talk about that Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway fight that's coming up. And I am going to bring that up right now. We'll bring it up on the screen and talk about the stats between these two guys. Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway. And feel free to also talk about how you guys feel about this fight coming about when Tony Ferguson turned down the fight initially. That's how Dustin Poirier ended up in there because, frankly, he had already won, of course, the interim title and then was asked to fight for it again, which I disagreed with. I didn't think that he should have been asked to fight for that again. But I'm gonna bring up the card right now. Dustin Poirier, what UFC is that? 237. And I'd like to look at some odds on that too as well. Yes, it will be on April 13th. So next week, Gaethje Barbosa. The next event after that will be Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway for the interim and possibly the real championship, if Khabib Nurmagomedov is really not going to fight until November when he fights George St. Pierre, which I believe for the 165-pound belt. But that's my long-time speculation. Which, at this point, I'll admit I could be wrong. But here we go. Max Holloway 20-3, Dustin Poirier 24-5. Of course, these men have fought before. This will be a rematch. Let's go down and look at the deepness of this card real quick, though. You got the return of Max Griffin versus Zalim Imadaev. undefeated guy out of Russia. You have return OSP versus Nikita Krylov. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this fight. That is a beautiful fight right there. Let's take a look at Nikita Krylov so far. He is coming off a loss against Jan Blachowicz. He got caught in an arm triangle choke. I don't think he's going to have that issue against OSP. But before that, he had knocked out 3 in a row, including Emmanuel Newton and Fabio Maldonado over there in Fight Nights Global. He had a short hiatus from the UFC, but you can see he had a very long stretch in the UFC, 25-second knockout over Walt Harris, minute and 24-second finish of Stanislav Nedkov back in the day, beat some pretty good names out there. Ed Herman, who's coming back here soon, by the way. Some good names on there, though, inside and outside of the UFC. I think, honestly, that is going to be a really good fight. Then Montel Jackson returns. Eric Anders versus Khalil Roundtree. Eric Anders, super exciting every time he fights. Of course, Khalil Roundtree, not that long ago, knocked out Gokhan Saki, the kickboxing, probably the most famous kickboxer ever, with over 200 fights, I believe. Torrance says, I got a feeling Cerrone will retire soon. He definitely had a lot of fights. Just for the record, I'm not a Tony basher. And it's rough having mental illness. That's all I'll say, and I won't say no more. I don't think I've seen you really bashing him too much, Arcade. Thank you. Conor is cancer for the MMA and UFC. What's up, Lucian Hella? That's the Lucian Hella I know. Now, and people say that I bash Conor McGregor. But I try to be fair with him for the most part. Let's look at the top 3 fights on this card, though. Khalil Roundtree. Of course, he's coming off that devastating loss to Johnny Walker. That guy touches anybody right now, and it's lights out. He even called out Alexander Gustafsson, but the UFC, I think, was like, that's a little quick. They ended up making the fight with Gustafsson and Anthony Smith. But yeah, knockout of Gokhan Soki. Before that, first round knockouts of Paul Craig and Daniel Jolly. Had some losses in there. Yeah, got caught by Tyson Pedro in a submission, though. Lost the decision to Andrew Sanchez. Eric Anders, this guy is always incredibly entertaining every time he fights, win or lose. That Thiago Santos fight, I don't know if you guys remember that. Reason it says 5 minutes, third round. They stopped it in between rounds, but that was an absolute war. Had the close split decision against Lyoto Machida as he was leaving the UFC. Exciting fight. That one right before the co-main event of the evening, which a lot of people are looking forward to more than Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier. A lot of people are actually pretty surprised that Max and Dustin are the main event over this one because Israel's star shines so bright right now. But Kelvin Gastelum, this is a guy that I always underestimate, and he almost always proves me wrong. I don't know why I underestimate him. Big names that he's lost to: Tyron Woodley, Neil Magny, Chris Weidman. That's it. And that was, towards the end of the fight, there in the third round, that Weidman caught him in an arm triangle submission. Then he had that first round knockout here recently of Michael Bisping, gets a split decision win over Ronaldo Souza, who of course will be fighting Yoel Romero in a rematch here soon. Looking forward to that fight. But he put away Tim Kennedy, which is absolutely amazing. Stopped Nate the Great Marquardt, Jake Ellenberger. This guy's put away a lot of really good guys since he was in that Ultimate Fighter, and not expected to win against Uriah Hall. Everybody has slept on him then, as well as myself. Tony Ferguson isn't coming back anytime soon. I agree with you on that, Torrin. I just want him to get his health right. Conor is a 4-time double paper champ, brother. Are you alluding, Lucian? A lot of people don't know this. In the promotion Conor McGregor was in before the UFC, he also won championship belts in 2 weight divisions and did not defend them in that promotion either. I can't remember the promotion right offhand. If somebody knows, feel free to throw it in the comments. But Israel Adesanya coming off that victory against Anderson Silva. I think he was a little tentative. I was surprised to see how much criticism came out of that. Very impressed with his performance against Derek Brunson. And before that, the fight against Brad Tavares. Guys, I was a doubter coming into this fight. I said Brad Tavares has got too much experience. He's too good of a wrestler. I said this is a bad move to put Israel Adesanya in there right now. I was really worried for him about this fight. He shined in that fight. Derek Brunson, he did some things nobody expected him to do, including myself, which is out-muscle Derek Brunson in the clinches to avoid some of those takedowns and land some great strikes in the clinches. And then, of course, that great fight, which is now a classic, between Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva. He gets through that one. Cage Warriors, thank you, Lucian. Says, yeah, it's showtime. Is hoping he can get the Conor fight. He just fell right into Conor's little trap. Now the question is, will he get the winner of Justin Gaethje and Edson Barboza fight? Good point. Yeah, I don't know. He did kind of fall into a trap there. He said he wanted either Conor, the winner of Gaethje, Barboza, and he threw one other name out there, and I can't remember what it was right now. I'll say if it comes to me. But, Israel Adesanya, he's sure to be extremely exciting. That was extremely exciting victory he had over Melvin Gerard, former UFC veteran over an Australian Fighting Championship. He really traveled the world before he jumped into the UFC as an MMA fighter. Before that, as a kickboxer, very decorated kickboxer. And I think Israel Adesanya. I think Kelvin Gastelum's in a lot of trouble in that fight. Let's get down to the main event, like Torrin Brown was talking about, though. Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway. Dustin Poirier 24-5. This is another guy I feel like everybody's always underestimating. But look at this. I mean, yes, he lost to Michael Johnson, that guy can beat or lose to anyone on any given night. I've never seen any fighter that I can think of that's had such an up and down career as Michael Johnson. Bounces back with a big win over Jim Miller. Anthony Pettis submitted him, which we just seen Pettis look good here recently. Of course, won that big war with Justin Gaethje, who's fighting Barboza this Saturday. And then an impressive win over Eddie Alvarez, knocking him out in the second round. Former champion Eddie Alvarez, who is now over in ONE FC. Don't forget this Sunday. I'll be posting a time for that, but it's basically late Sunday night, early Sunday morning. I'll be doing ONE FC. Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson will be debuting for that event. Let's look into the champ Max Holloway, though, and we'll go back to his losses. He lost to Dustin Poirier before the Conor fight. So Max was very, very young when he came into the sport. This was his debut fight on the Diaz Condit card way back in 2012. So 7 years, go back, he was 20 years old, maybe 21 years old when he fought Dustin Poirier the first time. I have no doubt he's a much, much different fighter now. Had a split decision against Dennis Bermudez when he was only 22. That's when he lost to Conor McGregor, was at 22. That's why I said I'm not going to take that victory away from Conor McGregor. I just think Max is a much better fighter now. Beats Andre Fili, Cole Miller, Cub Swanson, Charles Oliveira, Jeremy Stevens, Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis. the GOAT, Jose Alzo, twice, the 135-pound GOAT, and then, of course, sleeps Brian Ortega in his last fight. I have a hard time betting against Max Holloway against anybody right now. Max Holloway is my top pound for pound right now. I think he's able to come up a weight class. I think he's able to beat Dustin Poirier. I don't know that he's going to be able to beat Khabib Nurmagomedov should they ever fight. But Dustin's never in a boring fight, so I expect that one to be fun. Yes, ONE FC will be excellent this Sunday. Torrin Brown says, this might sound crazy, but Dana White wants Max Holloway to beat Dustin. Let's be honest, Dana White doesn't see Dustin as a real draw. I definitely see something in Max Holloway. I agree with you, Torrin Brown. I agree he's never really favored Dustin Poirier. I was kind of surprised to see him even putting him in this position. I think part of it was that fans actually were kind of calling for Dustin Poirier to get his just dues after that victory over Eddie Alvarez and the impressive victory over Justin Gaethje right before that. Israel is going to destroy Kelvin just like Max is about to destroy Dustin, says Torrin. I'm going to live chat around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. tonight and play my wrestling games and chat about whatever. I actually had one person show up last night for the first time. All right, everybody, post your link to your channel there, Arcade Chaos, if you want to play some video games with Arcade Chaos. Are you playing on PC Arcade? Let us know. Around 2 a.m., 3 a.m., post your channel. You haven't talked about it enough on here. But it's just, no doubt Dana, past favorites, and always plays it as nonchalantly as possible. But it's the name of the game. Only the strong survive. Money versus money. Dana has favorites for sure. Oh, I agree. Max was 21 when he lost Dennis, and Conor, not 22. Okay, I knew he was right around there. I was just doing some rough math in my head there. They had his age up there, but very young, 21. So even younger. Yeah, what a huge card that is coming up. Of course, this Saturday. We haven't looked at the card coming up this Saturday since we have a lot of the regulars in there. Let's look at this one. Like I said, the poll up there right now for Gaethje versus Barbosa on the YouTube channel Fights with Friends. If you don't see it come up, go to the community tab and it'll be right at the top. But yeah, let's go to Barbosa versus Gaethje. And then before we go, we will check out ONE FC and maybe whatever else you guys want to look at and talk about here in the next 20 minutes or so before we go offline. And feel free to put your comments about Conor in there if you think he will fight, who you think he'll fight, or what you think. We've done a lot of speculating, but what do you guys think his future plans are? Anybody that hasn't given their opinion on that yet. And like I said, always call in if you do want to call in on Skype. It is up there. Just send me an invite. Let me know you sent the invite because I'll have to approve it. I do that because I don't want to get completely scammed. But live Fights with Friends. That is that. And I just got a message on another channel talking about someone who just left Hulu Live because they are paying too much for their TV. Real quick, guys, you have to check out that deal with Sling TV right now. I've been watching some of the NCAA games, a lot of other things. I'm going to throw Sling TV up on the board. $10 a month right now, guys, as long as this promotion is going, which I don't think it's going to go for a whole lot longer at this rate, guys. But here you go. Sling TV, 25 plus channels. And ESPN 1, ESPN 2, and ESPN 3 were the biggest things that I wanted to see out of this. But you also get the History Channel, which is one of my other favorite channels. You get TBS, TNT, Disney if you have kids, Adult Swim. Good channels. Not a bunch of garbage, not a bunch of fluff. There is another package that has Fox, along with Fox Sports 1, 2, and 3. You can get them all for another price. After the cancellation, they actually just raised that. So after cancellation, it's $25 a month. Compare that to $50 plus a lot more fees right now with DirecTV Now, and I believe a worse package out there right now. So make sure and use this code for Sling. Yeah, someone had just said, DC Big Osa said, I left Hulu Live because they didn't have the things that I wanted, and now DirecTV just raised my prices. What I am hearing, can't confirm, I might lose those channels, which would piss me off. All right, they're taking away a bunch of channels. They're on DirecTV now, and sounds like people are having some issues with Hulu Live as well too. I haven't tried Hulu Live, just the regular Hulu. But let's get into the card that I promised. It's going to be, this one is on, so this one is on Big ESPN. For those of you that didn't notice, that didn't know, I think I knew, and then I think maybe I forgot. But this one's on Big ESPN. It's going to be or is it on UFC? I'm not sure if it's UFC on ESPN number 2 or if it's going to be on ESPN 2. That's kind of confusing. I believe, let me know in the comments if you know, but I believe it's that they're saying it's on ESPN and it's the second show. Because that would make sense. It is the second ESPN show. Thank you, Billy. Conor probably wait until the UFC dashes him $1 million main event, probably with Diaz at 265. What's up, Lone Wolf? How's it going? Michael Poley in the house. Says Hulu Live is way too much for way too little, and their streaming is horrible, too glitchy, and whatnot. I have not had big issues with Sling right now. I'm doing my $10 a month. The only big thing is to get your local channels, you have to sign up for a thing called Air TV if you care about the local channels. So I had to do that. But that's the only drawback to Sling. I got to throw that out there, though. Thank you, Michael Poley. It's Theory. Second card on Big ESPN. That's what I thought. Oh, so Sling is great. So Michael Poley's used it. Thank you. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. I was getting really sick of the freezing on DirecTV Now and constantly being behind. Shaman Moraes versus Sodiq Youssef. That is a good card coming up this weekend. One of the good fights on here. Ross Pearson versus Desmond Green. That one jumps out at me. Kevin Aguilar versus Enrique Barboza. Return of Kevin Holland versus Gerald Marchard. What about the return of Ray Borg, though, finally? Ray Borg's son has been fighting some medical issues. And good to see him back in the cage. And shout out, I know I've criticized him a lot in the past, but shout out to Brendan Schaub. Ray Borg said that Brendan Schaub reached out from the Joe Rogan show. A lot of people even criticized Brendan Schaub for that, saying that he wasn't going to follow through on it, that he hadn't given Ray Borg the money he had promised. Ray Borg came out, I believe it was on Twitter, and said, that's garbage. Brendan Schaub has done a great job donating to our family and helped our family significantly. So hats off to Brendan Schaub, Ray Borg. I'm glad to see that your son's recovering. I hope he makes a full recovery. And I can't wait to see you fight Casey Kenny this Saturday. Kevin Holland, for those of you guys that don't know who he is, came on the Dana White Contender Series, as you can see, beat Will Santiago Jr. I believe that was his second time on the Dana White Contender Series, though. Didn't quite make it through the first time. Fought in Bellator as well as LFA, which has kind of been the proving grounds, kind of almost the recruiting grounds recently for the UFC. Fought Curtis Millender to a decision over there, who we just seen recently. Went the distance with Thiago Santos. Can't give him a lot of guff for losing to Thiago Santos. And that guy is an absolute animal. And Kevin Holland really showed his toughness and grit in that one. I think Gerald Meerschaert might be in some trouble in that one. Coming off the loss to Jack Hermanson. Also had a loss to Thiago Santos, but he did not make the distance. I think Holland wins this one. I'm seeing my flash coming around. What's up, Jason Azevedo in the house, my friend? I think Joe Rogan is a shill now. Hey, Jason. We need to talk, man. We need to talk either on email or on here. Feel free to call in real quick. I'll put it here in the... I got some stuff I want to talk to you about, though. Live fights with friends. This is my Skype. If you send me an invite, let me know. Well, no, you have me on Skype already because we did a show, technology show on Mike Reviews It All. So feel free to call in. I'm taking call-ins on Skype tonight. Just if you're not in my group, just make sure and send me an invite. David Branch versus Jack Hermanson. David Branch, I mean, he always falls to, the bigger guys once he gets there, but I think he probably gets past Jack Hermanson. But I'm kind of going a little bit all over the place here. So what's thought for Paul Craig here? Glad to see him back in there after losing 3 of his last 4 fights. Just had the one submission against Magomed. He had been kind of touted to be something special coming out of Bama and having some good success in some of these other organizations. A submission specialist. If you don't remember who he is, he's finished every single one of his fights. 9 submissions out of his 10 wins. They're in Scotland. Submitted Henrique de Silva in his UFC debut there, and then submitted pretty much everybody the rest of his career except for the one guy he knocked out. Then took a tough loss in this last one to Jim Crute. He's only lost to really, really good guys. Tyson Pedro and Khalil Roundtree, super tough guys. And then Jim Crute, that guy's star is rising very, very quickly right now. Kennedy Jashuku, I think I'm not quite getting that correctly, but he's coming off an impressive head kick knockout first round over Dennis Bryant on the Dana White Contender Series. Also came over his last fight in LFA. Took him 2 times. A couple of these guys, it's taken him 2 times to get through in the Dana White Contender Series. First time he won a decision. This time he made it more emphatically. What up, Geeky Spartan the game? How's it going? Mike, quick question. Am I going to be able to do the MMA Playground through my phone? I didn't see an app for it, but if you go on there and use your phone on the full site, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to. Just go to MMAplayground.com. I have not looked into it myself, though, but I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. Oh, did I catch it right? You said you were taking calls tonight, or now? Yes, right now. So I'm taking them on Skype, Jason. I believe you already have my Skype, and I just put it there in the comments there. If you don't remember, if you send me an invite, just let me know. But I think you're already on my Skype. So yeah, feel free to call in. Billy called in a little bit earlier. And let me know what it is you want to talk about. Billy says, Mike, you should do a video showing people how to do the MMA Playground and where to make the picks. Maybe we should do that together, Billy. Yeah, that's a good idea. I have a lot of it. I have some time on my hands this week for vacation, so I need to put a lot of videos out. Get this channel growing again. So we've been down in viewership a little bit. As everybody has in the MMA YouTube channel history, not history, in our field, but there's a lot of competition out there right now as well. So Ross Pearson versus Desmond Green, like I said, that also was a good one. Carolina Kalakowicz, she got destroyed in her last fight. She's going to be facing Michelle Waterson. Jessica Andrade, I think, is just on another level right now. I think she mows down the champion right now. Jessica Andrade does. I think she mows down Rose Namajunas when they fight later. But Carolina Kalakowicz, was coming off 2 big wins before that. One over Felicia Herrig and Jody Escobar. She has a victory over Rose Namajunas just 3 years ago, a little less than 3 years ago, and had a very, very long, impressive winning streak. Before that, Michelle Waterson, of course, the karate hottie. A lot of people have, been very critical of the UFC for promoting her because they say, she's attractive. She's, the guys like to look at her. But she does have some talent. She also has a victory against Felicia Herrig coming not so long ago. Courtney Casey. She lost 2 in a row. Tisha Torres and Rose Namajunas. But then, of course, had that victory over Paige Van Zant. Took her out in the first round. They were calling it like the Battle of the Beauties. Maybe I just made that up. But I think I heard somebody say that. Beat Jessica Pena back in Invicta. I mean, she's had some decent victories over the year. I do think that Carolina is going to be too much for her in that fight. But the return of Josh Emmett. This guy's got only 2 losses, on his career. One by split decision. The other one, a controversial stoppage against Jeremy Stephens that a lot of us watched that together. Most people felt that it was from hits to the back of the head. Shots and elbows to the back of the head. It looked like Jeremy Stephens definitely did connect behind the back of the head a couple times. Like I said, his only other loss, a split decision. Desmond Green could have went either way. He's got a first-round knockout of Ricardo Lamas. Been in the UFC for a while now to just basically, like I said, both of his losses are the decision disputed, the knockout disputed against Jeremy Stephens. Good to see him get back in there and get a chance to vindicate. Michael the Menace Johnson, I was just mentioning, this is a guy that can beat or lose to any man on any given night. Against Khabib Nurmagomedov. He even landed some good shots there. Went the distance with Nate Diaz, but lost. Went to a split with Beneil Dariush. But he's had some big victories over the years. A lot of people forget. Let's go back. He's got victories over Joe Lozon. Here's when he had an impressive 4-fight winning streak after beating Tony Ferguson. Beats Joe Lozon, Gleason Tebow, Melvin Gerard, and Edson Barbosa. 4 wins in a row before losing a split decision to Beneil Dariush. has a little trip up, it goes the distance with Nate Diaz, then knocks out Dustin Poirier in the first round. Had a war with Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje outlasted him, but he was very tough. And like I said, he's on a 2-fight winning streak over Andre Fili and Artem Lobov. That fight, I'm pretty hesitant to call that fight because you never know what the hell to expect from Michael Johnson. Yeah, you guys are always complaining that I don't have call-ins and nobody's calling in. Skype Live, just send me an invite. Let me know that you send me the invite. Live Fights with Friends. All right. And, all right, Jason. For a second, I thought I hung up on you. How's it going, Jason? I'm doing good. Let me make sure I have my... There it is. Get you on the right... For some reason, the volume wasn't correct with you on that. Different people, when they call on Skype, I get different... That's the only problem. I get different issues. But, all right, let's see if we can hear you good now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, can hear you good now. All right, how's it going, man? Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, no problem. Not doing too much right now, so.
Yeah. What do you think about, what did you want to talk about? Do you have thoughts on the Conor McGregor thing or on the card coming up right now?
Well, reading about the Conor McGregor thing, I was reading lots of comments online, and I think the most reasonable comment is that Conor McGregor has done this before, and he's just doing it again to be relevant still because he lost his last fight, and nobody's really excited about him anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty popular comment right now. I did mention earlier that the last time that he did this, there was some pretty significant circumstances around it. One of the fighters he was training, as you know, the fighter that he was fighting actually died inside the cage. They're in a fight in Ireland. That really shook him up. And then the UFC asked him to do media 2 days later. And he's like, I just don't feel like doing it. They're like, we really need you here. And he's like, peace, I'm out. And then I guess they were able to come to an agreement.
Well, Conor's only 30 years old, too, so he's still very young, and I'm sure he still wants more money. Cocaine's not cheap.
Very true, very true. He's getting some money, he's killing it, he's doing pretty well with that proper 12 whiskey and his other ventures outside of the cage. Some people have speculated maybe he ends up in WWE.
Yeah, never know. I just heard last week, though, that he confirmed he was fighting Diaz again. Yeah,
I seen that he called out. He was on Twitter and said that Diaz deserved the rematch. He says that kid deserves the rematch. He had said that he was in negotiations with the UFC for July. Of course, I think it was just yesterday or the day before that he was on Jimmy Fallon saying that he was in negotiations with the UFC. That was taped 2 weeks before that in his defense. But, I mean, in most people's world, 2 weeks is not a long time.
Oh, and we don't know what's going on behind closed doors also. Maybe there was a dispute on the money. Maybe the money wasn't right for him.
Oh, I'm sure that's the biggest thing, because if the money was right, I think he would have already been fighting Donald Cerrone. He wanted a piece of the company. He wanted a piece of the company. First, he said he wouldn't be a co-main because he wasn't going to get the pay-per-view points. Then he said, "Oh, I am willing to be a co-main," and they're like, "Oh, cool." And then right after, immediately, he says, "But the stipulation to it is that I get a percentage of the company."
I think that probably could have worked if he wouldn't have lost to Khabib and Diaz the first time. I think that could have happened, but now he's lost too many times. He's kind of lost steam. That's just my opinion.
Is he the best self-promoter, though, in the history of combat sports?
Yeah, I really do think so, for sure. Especially because in the UFC, it's very knew that sort of thing, and he kind of pushed the envelope
and
more than anybody.
Yeah, if anybody deserved that, I mean, a percentage of the pie, as critical as I've been of him, I mean, he was a big part as to building the UFC as an international success. But you didn't see guys like, you look back, and I mean, maybe they should have, but you didn't see guys back in the day like Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin, who I believe saved the UFC with that great fight on the first Ultimate Fighter.
Oh, exactly, yep. That was an amazing fight.
Yeah, my wife actually thinks it was still the best fight ever, but she hasn't watched too many in the last couple of years. It was definitely the best probably at the time.
I think if they paid the fighters a little more, I think they would fight for their life a little harder. Like their life depended on it if they got paid a little more.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that would make them fight harder. One of them, I think, one of the big cases for paying them more, and they are investing in these training facilities, trust millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. They just build another big training facility and another big headquarters. But if these guys had enough money to where they didn't have to work a second job, I mean, the ESPN just called UFC one of the big four sports: football, basketball, baseball, and UFC. They said it just like that. And the fighters are getting 15% of the revenue compared to the NFL, where the players are getting well over 50% of the revenue. I think with it, we would have a better product if they address the pay issue.
They're subsidized by the government.
What was that?
I'm pretty sure the football stadiums and basketball stadiums are subsidized by the government.
That is a good point. That is true, and I don't know that the government's going to get on board with the UFC anytime soon, but Dana White is friends with Donald Trump, I guess, though. So.
Oh, it's for sure. You got to have the connections. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Dana White has them. That's why he is where he is.
Yes, he does. And that's a guy, it's like whether he actually likes Trump behind closed doors or doesn't, it's working for him.
It's kind of nowadays, I think a lot of people don't want to bring that up because they'll get a lot of hate.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever you think about either one of those guys, I do have to give him credit for, stating his beliefs and being like, hey, this is the guy I'm with, not to get too much into politics.
I respect someone standing up for what they believe in, not being afraid.
Absolutely. I was just about to break down the Justin Gaethje. I was going to look into the Justin Gaethje versus Edson Barboza. I actually don't want to give my pick yet on this because I think I have a pick that's going to surprise people. I want to do a video on that one, but do you want to give your thoughts on this fight?
I think that's the technical sniper striker against the brawler. It likes to get in your face and slug it out. So it's going to be like people. I think they're going to try to. They're going to try to fight their own game, and the other person's going to try to counter that. So they're going to try to. What's that word I'm looking for? I'm looking for a word. It's a very popular saying. They're trying to impose their will on the other. That's the word I was looking for.
Yes. And both of these guys, as far as striking, I mean, I think at 155, there's nobody better than these two than imposing their striking will on people.
But Barboza's not going to want to slug it out with them, for sure. He's not going to want to do that.
What do you think Barboza's game plan is, though? And you think more foot movement?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely going to use his foot movement because Gaethje's he takes a lot of abuse and he just hangs in the pocket and slugs it out. And I don't think Barboza would be able to take those shots from him in the pocket. So I think Barboza's going to move around and try to be more of a sniper in there.
Yeah, Kevin Lee did stop Edson Barboza, although, of course, that was mostly wrestling. Besides that, the only times he's been stopped was a submission to Donald Cerrone, and then he was knocked out by Jamie Varner, but I don't really put too much stock into that because it was way back in 2012.
Mm-hmm. That does seem to be Barboza's weakness. Does Gaethje have good wrestling? Does he have a background in wrestling?
Gaethje actually has a great background in wrestling that he hasn't used too much in the UFC. He did use it. If you watch his fights in World Series of Fighting, he used it a lot. He's got some spectacular slams in the World Series of Fighting, and he also had an amateur wrestling career. And as I'm showing right now, I don't know how many people know, he actually had 7 amateur MMA fights, which is rare these days, before he turned pro.
Yeah, I could probably see Gaethje trying to take him down. I could see that.
That's kind of been, I think, Edson Barbosa's weakness. I think Kevin Lee kind of exposed that.
Yep, and Khabib.
Yeah, well, Khabib does it to everybody. I don't think there's anybody that Khabib can't take down.
He had a hard time with
Iaquinta.
Yeah, Iaquinta is very underrated, though.
What do you think about him fighting Donald Cerrone? How do you think that fight goes?
Oh, I think Iaquinta is going to starch him.
That's my feeling too. As much as I love Donald Cerrone, I favor Iaquinta heavily in that one.
I think doing the real estate thing on the side probably gave his mind something else to focus on, because I think a lot of fighters, they kind of get burned out from the sport, and Iaquinta's been around for a while, and that didn't seem to happen to him. He seems to be getting better.
That's true. That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that a whole lot, but that's a good point.
Just a thought.
What was that? Sorry.
That was just a thought. I don't know if that's true, but it's just a thought, because I see a lot of fighters are in the game for a long time. Some of them burn out, other ones, they get better. But maybe the ones that get better, they have other things going on. They just don't obsess over MMA like George St. Pierre. He's kind of young to be retiring. He said he was obsessed over MMA. Maybe he just got burnt out from it. He just didn't want to bother with it anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely could be. George St. Pierre was, he was 36. He was a year younger than Tyron Woodley, but I still don't think George St. Pierre's necessarily done, as I mentioned, but...
Oh, you never know. Anything's possible. Your prediction could still come true. Anything is possible.
Yeah, I don't know. It's looking less likely, but...
We seen Chuck Liddell fight. Was it last year or beginning of this
year? Oh, God, that was horrible. That was horrible.
That's a perfect example of anything could happen.
Yeah, and somebody was asking me to put the fight card up for this, Barbosa versus Gaethje. I'm sorry, I thought I had, and I think I must have pressed the wrong number, so when I was calling out the stats, I actually didn't have it up, so I apologize, guys. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. As soon as I heard that announced between Justin Gaethje and Edson Barbosa, I thought, oh my God, just 2 trains just crashing into each other at 200 miles an hour. This is going to be...
I'm pretty sure Gaethje said he's done in a few more fights.
Yeah, he's got, I believe it was Bill, was saying he's got 2 more fights, I think, after this last one on his career or on his contract. And then he's looking to retire. It would be nice to see. I mean, I love to watch him fight the way that he fights. He's become one of my favorite fighters of all time in a short amount of time because of that style. But yeah, I really would like to see him, use a little more footwork or use a little bit of that wrestling. He lands 3 times the shots when they show the stat meters per shot. Lands 3 times the shots of an average 155er. He eats almost 4 times as many.
Wow. I remember him saying that he likes to put on a show and he doesn't want to be a boring fighter, so he's kind of stuck in that mindset to fight that way. I don't think he'll ever change.
Well, he's definitely not a boring fighter. I definitely enjoy watching him fight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it helps his stock. It probably helps him earn a little more money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I
That's
wouldn't.
really what it's all about at the end of the day. To make as much money as you can, get out as young as you can. Kind of like what Conor's doing. I think that's the smartest thing to do.
And if I'm Conor, and I mean, it's easy to say because egos get involved, of course. But if I'm Conor, why in the hell do you continue to fight when you have that much money? Why do you want to keep getting punched in the face if you're Conor, or especially Tyron Woodley at 37 years old?
Yeah, Tyrone, I think, still has a lot of fight left in him. He hasn't taken a lot of damage.
No, he hasn't, but I'm just saying, I'd love to see him continue to fight. I mean, he's one of the ones, he called out Conor McGregor as well. Everybody was calling him out.
He would mangle Conor.
Oh, absolutely. That's why he called him out. That's a smart move. Yeah, that's a smart move by Woodley. Conor's not going anywhere near that matchup.
No.
Let's look. I did want to go to one more I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you've looked at the ONE FC card coming up with Demetrius Johnson and Eddie Alvarez making their debut.
No, I haven't seen that yet. I'm interested in it, though. I'll definitely be watching it.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's going to be starting super early here in the States. I did the ONE FC Heroes this last week, which is like ONE FC One Championships version of Dana White Contender Series. It was more entertaining than I expected it to be. I didn't plan on doing it until the last moment, and then I decided to do it. Obviously, that time, I can't expect everybody to be up at that time, but it was very good. I think everybody enjoyed it. I'm going to bring that card up here right now. Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson are both in these tournaments. And this is inside of a ring, which, for those of you that are watching ONE FC, or I'm sure you've watched some Rise and different things, it's a much different sport inside the ring.
Are the rules the same?
The only difference in the rules, so ONE FC had kicks and knees to the head of a down opponent. In 2016, the CEO took the kicks to the soccer kicks out because he felt that it wasn't media friendly, which I understand. You can still do the up kicks to a down opponent if you're downed, which I've always thought was a stupid rule that the UFC didn't allow that. We've seen a really good up kick from somebody last week. The guy was coming in on the ground and he smashed him downward with his heel from his back. It was a really good strike. And the knees to the head of a down opponent are allowed, so there's not that confusion. Besides that, I thought there was another rule change. I think maybe besides that, it's just the ring, which complements strikers much, much more. The Bellator guy that just went over their I think it's their welterweight champion that went over and lost in Ryzen, talked about how different the ring was, and he wanted a rematch with the guy, but he wanted to do it in a cage.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Demetrius does.
Yeah, I am too, especially wrestlers. I think that the cage, I think one of the reasons that wrestlers have such a big advantage in the UFC, or why we have so many wrestling champions, is the cage. I do think it is a big advantage to them, and then they don't have to worry about head kicks on the ground and knees to the head of a down opponent. So I think that gives them a little bit more freedom to get those takedowns without having to worry about that punishment.
I think this sort of trading is good, really good for the sport in general.
Oh, absolutely, and I enjoy MMA inside a cage. And I enjoy it inside of a ring, but it's very much a different sport.
Mm-hmm. It also sort of prevents a monopoly by bringing big names to other organizations.
Absolutely. I was talking about the footprint of one championship globally. It's actually much bigger than the UFC. They're killing the UFC in Asia. Their cards actually averaged 11 million viewers last year.
So they're the monopoly over there then.
Exactly. And a good UFC card on Fox Sports 1 or ESPN 1. I mean, they are ecstatic if they get 1.5 million viewers on a card.
I've never actually watched the whole one championship card before.
I actually haven't watched a whole one either. I've just watched highlights, and then last week we did the ONE FC Heroes, which I thought was a card before I started watching it, but then I realized it was their version of the Contender Series. Very little breaks between fights. They ended up getting, I think it was 11 or 12 fights done, and the whole card was over in less than 3 hours.
How do they pay their fighters over there?
Very well, at least the Americans that have came over, very, very well. Eddie Alvarez, he shared some details to his contract. I know he said that they just blew the UFC away in what the UFC was offering him. Demetrius said he's very happy as well.
UFC did not treat Demetrius very well at all.
No, I thought the UFC could have definitely promoted him a lot more, especially now with the Disney thing. I think he's maybe the only guy that could have had a chance at making the UFC almost kid-friendly. I mean, Mighty Mouse, Mickey Mouse, he's kind of kid-sized. He's
pretty popular at the video game community. He has his own video game streaming channel.
Yeah, and that on top of it, I mean, that's an easy tie-in that the UFC just never worked with. I think Dana White is completely overwhelmed in the promotion department and everything else he's doing. And as critical as I am of him sometimes, somebody needs to give that guy some help as far as promotion.
Yeah, one thing I don't really like was when they got rid of the sponsors on the fighter shorts. I think that really hurt them.
Oh, I agree.
Demetrius used to be sponsored by Microsoft. He had the Xbox on the back of his shorts. That they had to have been paying him good for that.
Yeah, and I don't see why they couldn't have done. I mean, I know they want like a universal uniform. This is what the NBA does. This is what the NFL does. These are also organizations that are paying bench warmers $1.5 million a year, though. And I don't see why they couldn't have had some Reebok shorts or something else. And they wear Reebok shorts, and then they wear their Xbox shirt on the way to the cage. You're going to take it off before you fight anyways. So, I mean, what's the harm? Throw a couple Xboxes into the front crowd. You know how excited people would get? You're in the front row. That would be a cheap promotion. I mean, they're about $400 a piece. Say you take 5 or 6 of those in there, and that's on ESPN. That's on national TV. Demetrius Johnson walks up and just hands out 5 Xbox Ones to kids in the crowd. Do you know what leverage that $2,000 promotion would get?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, but the UFC, they seem to be taking more away from the fighters as time goes on. Like, they took the IV away, they took the sponsors away, and now the UFC is the only one allowed to whore themselves out on the cage, and the fighters aren't allowed to anymore.
Yeah, I definitely really disagree with that. I thought the IV was I think the IV is a commission decision, though. I think that's done by the Universal Rules of MMA, WBA Universal MMA Rules, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission. But the UFC could have had something to do with it. Or I could be wrong, but I thought that was the case.
Yeah, well, it was UFC's idea to have the USADA part of their organization to begin with. So...
yeah, they've really put USADA in an uncomfortable spot. They're like, we want you to be really good at testing drugs. Then they do the thing with Jon Jones, and it's like, okay, now we're going to have you stand up here and explain why we're hypocrites and why it's a great thing.
Yeah, I think when the Fertitas left, I don't like the way it's going for the fighters, to be honest.
I like the way, I think that the fighters definitely need to get paid. I keep holding out hope that these deals with ESPN are going to lead to higher fighter pay. I haven't seen it yet. I mean, it's great. It's great as a fan now that you can get the ESPN Plus. Well, you can't get ESPN Plus app in Canada yet, though, right?
I haven't looked into it, but we do have ESPN here. There's a Canadian ESPN on the Canadian satellite networks and cable networks.
Okay. Anybody who knows in the comment if it's available over in Canada. I couldn't really get a straight answer online. But just going to close out this ONE FC card real quick just to let everybody know, when this is going on. These are China times here, 3:30 p.m. for the prelims, 6 p.m. Last week it started at 4 p.m. China time, which was 1 a.m. my time. So I believe the main card is going to start around 3:30 a.m. So I'm going to start work a little late that day, but it's coming back from vacation. 4 world championship fights that day, though. They have their bantamweight, their middleweight, their women's strawweight, and their lightweight world championship on the line, including lightweight world champion and one of Japan's biggest stars, Shinya Aoki. That on top of Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson making their debuts. So, and I'll go ahead and...
Billy Hughes just posted a comment in the chat.
Let me check it out. That's why I was taking this down so I could go to the comments here. Mike says, go to ESPN.com. McGregor is under sexual assault investigation. Well, I was just talking about that a little earlier. RS, are you in the chat room? RS has been sending me document after document from Ireland, from like the Ireland Police Department and things. And unfortunately, I didn't feel comfortable enough that I was able to substantiate everything enough to sell it. And it's usually not my thing to spend all my time in fighters' personal life, but that is certainly huge.
Yeah, I agree.
Quincy says McGregor is being targeted for money, most likely. Make that money and people try to take that money. Yeah, that's definitely a good, valid point as well. But, yeah,
seems to be the flavor of the week to go after people for sexual assault nowadays.
Well, yeah, the Me Too movement.
Public with it. Yeah, it's really going public. That's like the popular thing to do now. So everybody's speaking out about it.
Yeah.
You didn't really hear much about it 10 years ago. You did hear about it, but not like when all this started to really pick up, and now it seems to be like a trend.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I mean, you know a lot of guys, I know a lot of guys out there that they really are pieces of crap. They treat women horribly. Exactly. And, there are a lot of guys out there that have just thrown themselves on women for a long time. And
it goes both ways for both sexes. But I believe both sexes can be abusive, but men abuse in different ways women do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Men are more on the physical side, whereas women are more on the mental side, where they'll totally ruin your life and take everything from you, whereas men will be the ones who will physically abuse.
That's a good point. Cuck Norris calling out the old Condom Depot sponsor. I will never forget those. The first time I seen those on the shorts, Chris Lieben coming down with the Condom Depot sponsor on his shorts. I think Condom Depot may have been what brought along the Reebok deal. I'm not sure. They were just like, yeah, I don't know, we can't. I don't know if we can do this anymore. At that point, I thought it was pretty hilarious, but guys, make sure that you're going out there and getting your on it right now. I've heard flu season is late this year. Little break for sponsor here real quick. On it, of course, I'm always touting the power of Alpha Brain. It literally makes me human and be able to do this. Their new Shroom Tech Immune being highly touted here during the flu season. Whether you believe in vaccines or any of that stuff or not, whether you even get you get the flu vaccine or whatever else it is, make sure you also take the right supplements. Of course, try to eat healthy, and On It has a lot of great things over there. They have the Captain America plate, which I think is completely awesome. That you can have plates that look like a Captain America shield. And then they have those cool-looking kettlebells that are gargoyles. All kinds of really neat stuff to pimp your place out. I want to get one of those gargoyle kettlebells in here in the office to be sitting behind me while I'm streaming.
Yeah, those good things give you quite a workout. Very unorthodox type of workout.
Yeah, that's becoming very popular right now. Functional strength training and functional strength workout programs, as opposed to just doing bench press and bicep curls.
I totally agree. From my own experience, it's just mixes things up and keeps things interesting.
Yeah, I need to get. I've been fortunate enough to be on vacation this week. I've hit the gym 3 days in a row pretty hard, and I feel a lot better. So I need to make sure.
I think the best you'll ever feel is after a nice, good cardio session. That's pretty much the best you're ever going to feel.
Absolutely. I used to do it every morning for a while. Well, I won't say I did it for a long time, but when I did for a few months, yeah, I felt a lot better. I need to get back into that.
I'll be back in just 10 seconds.
All right, Robert Christian. Uriah says, how y'all doing? Women can be abusive also, and men can also be mental abusers. Absolutely right. I agree, Robert. And also, it's funny, I was just listening to Joe Rogan before this, and I want to talk to Jason a little bit about that when he comes back. It wasn't Lenny Bruce, it was Lenny something. It was a popular comedian on recently, but they went into the fact that there were female agents that actually were making all of the young men sleep with them to get parts. And I don't think that's something a lot of people think about. They definitely don't think about those guys as victims. So
yeah, that's been going on forever, but just now it's starting to get the publicity.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had when I was a little more fit, and I guess 7, 8 years ago or so, though. I mean, I had my store manager when I was an assistant. She wanted to have a relationship with me. I wasn't sure at first, and then I realized she'd had a relationship with the assistant at the last store that came out later. She tried to get me fired. She ended up moving to Texas, and then she got fired and ended up marrying her assistant from that store.
I've seen that happen plenty of times.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty sad, too, because I knew her husband. I was really good friends with her husband. Of course, I'm married. I would have never done anything with her. But on top of it, I was really good friends with her husband, who was really into martial arts. And I go over there. I used to watch UFCs with him, and we did some training before they moved. And, yeah, it's a sad situation, but there can be predators on both sides for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I do want to talk for a minute, though. Was that you a little while earlier in the chat that says Joe Rogan's turned into a shill?
Yes, that was me.
I thought that was you. Hey, do you care to explain that?
Well, when he had the Golden Snitch on right after Jon Jones got busted, it seemed like that was damage control for the UFC, and because Joe works for the UFC, I think the UFC gave him some money. Have him on, have him explain everything to justify letting Jon Jones fight, which he should have never been allowed to fight if it was still in the system, in my opinion. Like, it was a total scam.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. I was actually thinking about some other things that people had called Joe Rogan on about, but I think he kind of needs to separate his podcast from the UFC. I agree with you on that. And Brendan Schaub called him out, like, online. I don't know if you heard it, like, emphatically. He's like, I don't know if he used the word shill, but he was like screaming. He's like, you're my friend. He's like, you're protecting the UFC. You know this is bullshit. You know that, Jon Jones is dirty.
Yep. So they did the same thing with Brock Lesnar. They didn't want to miss out on that payday.
Yep, and now Brock Lesnar, of course, came into the cage in UFC. It's rumored Daniel Cormier, well, he even said that he might show up, which makes me think he probably will for sure, that Daniel Cormier said he might show up at WrestleMania, I think it's Sunday after next, during the Brock Lesnar match.
I think people who really care about the quality of the sport, the cleanness of the sport, it would upset anybody who cares about that. But I think for the casuals who don't really care, just want to watch a fight, they probably don't really care about all that stuff. But for the people who really care about the sport and want to see the best clean fighters fighting and see who the best is, it pisses them off.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and especially like you mentioned, they're the ones who brought USADA in, and then it's like I thought that they put USADA in a horrible position.
Mm-hmm. Like, let's be honest, every single fighter, well, 90% of fighters have used something in the past, but if they can be clean the night of the fight, that's really important. That's what I want to see. I want to see them clean on that night. I don't want to see people juiced on fight night.
Absolutely, yeah. To the point to where there's no residual, nothing pops that night, which means they've been off it for, I don't know what amount of time. I mean, obviously, I would like to see them 100% clean. If they're not 100% quote clean, let's decide. Let's make a firm line in the sand of what we want to allow, what we don't want to allow. Honestly, I don't know enough about it, but I don't know that I'm 100% against looking into EPO for enhancing. If there's not big medical drawbacks to it.
EPO is what Lance Armstrong took, correct?
Yes, where they take oxygen from your own blood and then they infuse it later on to where you have more oxygen in your blood and it increases your cardio. Yeah, his training partner, Landis, I want to say Landis Floyd, I don't think that's the right last name, but anyways, he tested positive for it the year after, I think it was the year after that Lance had been kicked out. Good point, Sam. He says, I think that podcast Joe did with the Golden Snitch has the worst like to dislike ratio ever. Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah.
I think Joe should just commentate.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Sometimes there's a delay when we're talking. I think you're done and I speak over you. Sorry. But anyways, what I was gonna say is I was reading the comments on that video, and from what a lot of people were saying, I don't know if it was just sort of like a copy and paste, which it was, but I don't know the validity of it. But what they were saying was young Jamie was deleting comments at first that were saying Joe was a shill, and then it became overwhelmed, and then he couldn't keep up with deleting them all. And there eventually ended up being thousands and thousands of a comment that was deleted that was reposted about how corrupt everything is, how Joe's a shill, how his damage control, and how Jones should have never been allowed to fight.
I had heard things like that about young Jamie saying that young Jamie was deleting comments. Joe came out and said that young Jamie doesn't delete any comments. I don't know what the truth of that is. As small as this channel is, I've been accused of deleting comments myself. And then I found like a special little thing in YouTube that I didn't even know that was there until really not that long ago, probably about a year ago. And it was a place that said comments that are waiting for your approval kind of thing. And all these comments were just stuck in there. So maybe that was the point. And I know YouTube actually does delete comments themselves. So
I wouldn't look at Joe Rogan any differently if he did delete comments, but what I do look at him differently is that he had him on there to defend Jon Jones in the UFC.
Yeah, I wish you would. I wish you would walk that back, because I'm actually pretty happy with a lot of the way he's approached other things recently. I don't know. I mean, I know it's not quite MMA related, but a lot of us, we've been watching Joe Rogan for a long time. The big Jack Dorsey thing, the CEO of Twitter, when they had him on.
That was another red flag for me too, because you can't trust those big corporations. You really can't.
It was for me as well, and then I listened to the interview. I listened to it after all the outrage. I wish I had listened to it before. Maybe I would have had a little different take. and I was listening to it, and I'm like, I don't think he was completely leading him. I wish he had went into certain things more. But then after all the backlash, Jack Dorsey said he would go back on. He brung his his PR person on, whose name happens to be Vijaya, her last name, and Tim Pool, a very critical reporter. And Tim Pool, basically with the help of Joe Rogan, I will give him credit on that, they basically ate Jack Dorsey and Vijaya alive for about 3.5 hours.
That's good.
So I don't know if you've seen that one, but, accusing them of deleting, certain people with certain views as comments and accounts and not going after, certain people, generally left-leaning, because that's, reporters are more left-leaning, and it's
that kind of redeems Joe a little bit then, if that's the case.
It really redeemed him for me, because I've been watching him since, back in the day, the first UFCs. I was a big fan of Fear Factor, conspiracy theory. Kind of feel like I can relate to him because, he watches pretty much nothing but violence on TV. That seems to be what I'm drawn to.
I think after hearing that, I might have to go back to a neutral stance on Joe Rogan then.
Yeah, it really changed a lot for me. Well, yeah, don't take my word for it, though. I'd go through it, at least like the highlights, and listen to the one. It's Jack Dorsey and Tim Pool on there. I thought it was a very good podcast, and it redeemed him to a lot of people. As far as that was concerned, I'm still upset with how he's handled the Jon Jones thing.
Yeah, he defended Jon Jones so much, but he was obviously dirty. Like, everybody knows it.
Yeah, for sure. Robert Christian says, I completely agree with the voice. Joe was paid to explain the Admiral. That voice is your buddy, Jason Azevedo, Robert. I guess I should have put up the speaker on here for people that are coming in. I forgot to make a little spot on that. I just have Connor's tweet up there. I didn't put a whole lot of planning into this. Just when I seen this come out, I was like, people might want to talk about this, so let's do a live show.
You remember Connor's last tweet when he retired in 2016? When he said, thanks for the cheese, see you later.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what the pina coladas are about, though, because as far as I know, I don't think I've ever heard anybody making pina coladas with whiskey. So you would have thought he would have said something about proper whiskey. And if you're gonna say drinks are on you, where's my drink, Connor? You can't just say you're giving people drinks and then not do anything. I'm waiting for my pina colada.
Have you ended up trying proper 12 yet?
I have. Oh, yeah, of course we don't hear each other's voices, Robert. No, that was my fault for not putting it up there. But, yeah, I have tried it. It ranks with whiskey around that price point. I do think Jameson is a little better. I listened a lot to how they were doing it, and I listened to the distiller. And he actually said that the demand was much higher than what they had thought. And he said that they were putting out a lot of whiskey that had only been aged for about 6 months, when it actually should have been aged for 2 years, which is kind of the proper time to age whiskey, minimum, before getting it out. And he said, this is going to be an issue that is resolved, but basically it's going to take a couple years.
So it's an improper 12.
That's a good point. Yes, it is an improper 12, or at least a premature 12 at best.
Would have been cool to see an unbottle review video on your channel.
Yeah, I should have done that. I had planned on doing it, and actually when I ended up buying it, we got invited over to some friends that we hadn't seen in a long time, and it was gone very quickly. I will say there were no complaints. There were no complaints from anybody about the quality of the whiskey. Everybody enjoyed it. It was gone very quickly.
Yeah, whiskey's like sex. It's not all of it's good, just some is better than others.
That is a good point. Yeah, it definitely wasn't. It definitely wasn't like a cheap whiskey, like a Broker's or something. It seemed to have good quality and good tones. I think it's just what they were talking about, that it wasn't mature enough. And
I haven't seen them carry it here in Canada.
Yeah, it's been all over in the United States, and it's actually been selling out all over. We couldn't get any around Christmas time. We wanted to get a bottle around Christmas time, and everybody was actually sold out of it. So I was surprised how popular it is. That shows you his reach.
Yeah, whiskey was kind of smart for him because he's Irish, and that was a good business move.
Oh yeah, I don't know if he came up with that name too, but I mean the name, it flows perfectly.
I'm sure in Ireland it's just selling like they can't keep up with the demand. I bet still.
Oh, I can't even imagine. And then he's given. I think I might have said it earlier, but to give him profit, I do like that he's given 15% of the proceeds back to first responders. So, props to him for that.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Conor McGregor has a good heart. He just seems like an asshole in the spotlight. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you put on that persona that he did, obviously, to get the attention and become the star that he did, I think it kind of comes to a point. People have been talking about Colby Covington recently, how Colby totally changed. He wasn't this same guy at all, and now he can't even be in the vicinity of other UFC fighters because everybody hates him. And they said he was not like that at all before.
Yeah, I could see why people hate him, but at least he believes in something, and he's going his own way, and kind of it's good for him to make that publicity, to make himself known, to get more people wanting to see him lose or wanting to see him win. It's sort of good for him in general, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of like Conor McGregor's thing. I mean, nobody sells like a fighter that half the people or more want him. A lot of people are paying him to see him win. People will pay more to see you lose. Ask Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
I bought every. Oh, go ahead.
Situation with Jon Jones right now. Everybody wants to see him lose.
Yeah, and I bought every Floyd Mayweather pay-per-view after he changed from Pretty Boy to Money Mayweather, and I was rooting for him to lose on every single one. A lot of times he was fighting some of my favorite fighters like Zab Judah and Arturo Gatti, but it exponentially increased his earning power when he became a heel.
Yeah, I would really like to see more UFC fighters kind of just... I know they're prize fighters, and it's not entertainment. It's really not part of being a prize fighter. Well, it is, but it's sort of like taking it to the next level, and I think that's good for the sport. But a lot of people say it becomes like WWE, but in order for the sport to grow, it has to evolve. It has to kind of take that next step, in my opinion, to where Conor took it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a good point for that. Archangel, what's up, Archangel? First time I've seen in here. It's a sad day. I hope he is healthy and not suffering from potential brain damage from his legacy. Changed the game. Everybody was on another level after him. Yeah, we were talking about that, Archangel, how he definitely changed the game more than anybody before him, I think.
It definitely makes things more interesting. If people just get on the mic and say, yeah, whoever the UFC wants to give me. How is that interesting?
Oh, and people are still saying that. And I'm like, if you're Jose Aldo, I mean, you can get away with that. At this point, I legitimately don't think he cares, and people want to see him fight. But if you're some guy that just had a great knockout that most people have never heard before, you better have a name in mind to call out.
Exactly. That's why you kind of have to respect what Colby's doing, even though he's annoying and he's kind of cringy. But, at least he's trying.
Yeah, and Kamaru Usman even got into that a little bit. I mean, he said on Joe Rogan, I'm not going to sell my soul for this, but he definitely got into the trash talk part of it. There's some, not so much with Tyron, but definitely with Colby.
But there's kind of fine lines, I think, like when you get into insulting someone's family, that's when you cross the line. And you also cross the line if you talk bad about the wrong person, like who's the fighter who attacked the other fighter just a couple days ago?
Leon Edwards was attacked by Jorge Masvidal.
Masvidal, yes. Like a guy like that, that's where you gotta really be careful. Like, and that's gonna be the downside if this sort of thing picks up more. And I noticed the UFC press conferences, they're getting more into that Conor type of promotion with the press conferences, with the trash talking back and forth. But the downside to all that is going to be more Masvidal type things going on, where people just start attacking people out of frustration and anger.
Yeah, well, Jorge Masvidal, he's one of those kinds of guys that, I mean, he's said it since the beginning. They should know. It's like you're not going to disrespect him. I mean, he's not going to start it with you, but if you start it with him, and I still have to see video with Leon Edwards with his hands up. He said Leon Edwards' hands were up. You can't really see the camera angle very good. And then, Jorge Masvidal, like they said, it kind of rose his stock because they were joking about it, saying, 2 pieces and a soda kind of became this thing. But yeah, I don't like fighting outside of the cage. I think that's bad for the sport in the long run for sure.
Yeah, that's where the trash talking can really get dangerous, but at the same time, it makes for really good entertainment.
Yeah, the draw, the line for me is, don't ever talk about somebody's family. And I think maybe it was because Conor was drinking. I don't know that he's done that so much in the past. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was really against that. I was thinking at the time, I'm like, man, if I'm Khabib Nurmagomedov, you talk about my family, I'm gonna punish you. I'm gonna make you regret it.
Yeah. Like if someone says something like that to me, I'd be able to handle them pretty good with trash talk because I'm not a big guy. I can't really beat too many people up, so I'm pretty used to taking it. But someone who is who can't handle that sort of thing, that's when it crosses the line. It kind of depends on the person. Like some people, you say one certain word and it'll create a spark and they'll totally lose it. For some people, it's family. For some people, you make fun of, for example, their weight or whatever it is that they have insecurity about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. To me, I think it was kind of like, to me, it would be, if it's in private, I'm probably not going to fight somebody over words, but public humiliation, that's the stuff that would stew with me. Like he talked about his father and his family and went deep in front of a lot of people. So it was like he was not just saying things about his family, but he was embarrassing his family and bringing them into the public. That's what would be the thing with me. That's like why, that's...
I could understand that. That's like on another level.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't really know till you're there and being insulted like that, I guess. I guess you have a good point there.
Yeah, that's my big ban list was, you always have trolls on here once in a while, and I think you and a lot of people in here have helped helped me make a really positive community where we pretty much know most of the people in here. Maybe I don't grow as fast. I'm fine with that, is to keep it more positive. I'm fine with growing a little slower. But I mean, my big list of people that have been banned is when, people came on and started talking about my daughter, and I wasn't able to have her on very much anymore. And that was, was like cross the lines, like automatic ban. I'm sending you to YouTube and goodbye.
Mm-hmm. That's because they don't know you. They just see some random person talking. I don't think it's personal.
Yeah, no,
and
it's
see some
probably
random
not.
person talking, and they're just miserable people. They just want to start stuff.
Yeah, and I'll take it to by myself all day, but I'm not gonna subject my young daughter to that.
Yeah, that's true. That's the thing with the internet. You don't have to look someone in the face. They'll say anything.
Yeah, and that's why I don't take anything too personal. I mean, people have said some pretty horrible things about me on here, and that's why I just take it. It's like, yeah, you have no idea who I am. As soon as you get off of this, you're going to be going to somebody else's random video and posting as many negative things as you can think of.
Once people got to know you, they wouldn't say that. Or if they were decent people, they wouldn't say that.
Well, thank you. We have a decent community here that it makes it. I like people to look forward to being able to come and talk to each other, even if everybody doesn't know everybody personally.
How's David been doing?
He's doing much better. He's after the last time he had been out of the hospital and then had to go back in for a kidney infection. He had to go back in for about 4 or 5 days. I think they may not have gotten everything the first time. Second time since he's came back though, he's been doing much better. It's been 6 weeks or 2 months. Maybe 6 weeks. He's been doing excellent. So yeah, thanks for asking.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to talk about? I think I'm pretty close to getting ready to wrap up here.
Yeah, that's pretty much at the moment all I have to speak about.
I'll address Robert Christian. He says, sorry you had to go through that, Mike. The internet is cruel. They say what they want without answering for it. Yep. Yeah, like I said, I don't care about me. It's just just some people attached to my family. That's all. But we're past that. And I have good mods that you guys are like ninjas. I don't even see the insults anymore now. All right. Hey.
This channel actually has good comments compared to others I've seen. I've seen some crazy comments on other channels.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they still come in, and sometimes they, it wasn't always like that at the very beginning. And I got some advice from another YouTuber. They're like, this is your atmosphere. You need to control it, or it's going to control you. So whatever kind of atmosphere you want, you tell people what it is and draw the line right there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it would probably surprise people, the YouTuber that I heard that from, but I won't. I don't know that they want me to mention it. But, all right.
Yeah, I guess I'll let you go.
Yeah. Hey. All right. Thanks for calling in, Jason. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, Mike.
See ya. Have a good one. All right. Thanks, guys. I think I'm going to end this one for today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, especially for so long over this. I got to go also. Bye, family. All right. Have fun with your family. Everybody, have a good evening. Don't forget about all the big fights coming up. Like I said, Saturday, Gaethje versus Barbosa. And then Sunday night, we're going to do ONE FC for their championships on the line, along with Demetrius Johnson and the return of Eddie Alvarez. And I have a message from Matt Horowitz real quick. I'll get back to him about that later. Matt might be watching right now. Mr. Horowitz had a comment about McGregor. Says, you think he actually did anything, or people just got pissed off, just being haters? Who knows? Who knows? We've seen the news of they're on ESPN. I'll let you guys check that out. Apparently, it sounds like there's some sexual assault allegations against Conor McGregor. I don't like to go into the personal life so much. But until next time, as always, I love you, I respect you, and I'll see your fine asses later.